Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if God like Naruto acts like a real shinobi part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Gray. Gray was all he could see. Really, all this gray was quite annoying. But why was he seeing gray to begin with? The last thing he remembered. The last thing he remembered was dying? Was this the afterlife? Was there an afterlife? There has to be something because he is creating mostly coherent thoughts. Wait. It feels like he's moving. It's getting lighter. And colder. And noisier. Like a ringing? No. A scream. Screaming from a woman. Screaming was never a good thing in his experience, so he braced himself. He couldn't move or talk, but he could at least prepare himself mentally for what was to come. He could feel himself being moved, held by a person? No, it felt like his whole body was being enclosed by these arms. A normal person could never be so large to hold a grown man in such a way. Unless they were of the Akimichi clan, but that made zero sense. Isn't crying? Why isn't crying? A woman screamed in hysteria. It was odd. She was so loud, and yet, he couldn't understand everything she said. Perhaps it was because she was hysterical. Rub check airway. Nothing monitor is showing doctor. Now there are too many talking. He couldn't understand anyone and it was giving him a headache trying to listen so hard. The woman is still screaming and now he is being tossed around. And something else is crying. What is that noise? SHH. Are you? It's okay, Sha. He heard from a man. He sounded so calm. Probably the only sane person in this room if he is in a room. All he can see are blotches of gray. They look like figures, but someone just crammed some fingers down his throat. That is not okay. Wah! He cried, letting as much noise and air out as possible. Crying. My baby's crying. She was still screaming, but this sounded happy this time. What kind of messed up lady takes joy in another person's suffer dash? Did she just say baby? I am a grown man. I am a grown man. I grew up in some of the Hersha's conditions. Raised by war and hardened by the deaths of my family and clansmen. I prided myself in my innovation and knowledge. I formed my life around structure and rules. My enemies shook at the mention of my name and my clan's name. I had created countless jutsus and worked tirelessly to further the survival of my clan and its future children. I may have not had the vision, the plan for a brighter future. I was never much of an optimist. I couldn't afford to be. However, I was the one that created the structure. Provided the realty for each situation, and never allowed us to be overgenerous in our negotiations. I kept his vision from being our undoing, while being true to his ideals, hopes, dreams. Dreams we all shared. A dream where no child would have to die in order for others to survive. But here I was. In a crib. Staring at a maggot. A screaming maggot. I was a man. A grown man. A fearsome man. Who remembers dying. Now, I am the other screaming maggot. I do feel a small amount of pity to the parents. Having two screaming kids, twins, has to be rough. Not that I was going to make the situation any easier on them. So I'm being immature. What are you going to do? Turn me into a baby? Tough shit, someone else beat you to it. HHHH. Please be quiet for Tusan. Your Ka-san needs her sleep. That would be the father. He was extremely tall, though it's hard to tell when you are as small as I am. He had very dark brown hair, almost black, and a goatee. His eyes always seemed tired, like he never got enough sleep. Although, that may be my fault. I tend to start these crying fits. I watch him as he picks up the other one. The other baby. A baby boy. I watch as he cradles him in his arms, moving back and forth in a soothing manner. The boy hiccups and starts to drift asleep again. I have long stopped crying, as I have no intention of being picked up and treated like a baby. The whole point was to get the infant to start crying, so the parents woke up. If I was awake, so would they. Okay. Maybe I should be treated like a baby. Clearly, I lost all my maturity in this transition. As the man puts his little boy back in the crib, he reaches a hand out to me, rubbing my stomach. If I could move. Both of you. He says, smiling at me. Not that I have any idea what he said. He just sits there for a while longer, just watching us. Watching me. Ah, he's waiting for me to fall asleep. Well, he is going to be here all night because if he thinks I am going to fall asleep in some foreign environment, in this cage of a body, he is sorely dash. I estimate it to be day 3. It's hard to tell, since I sleep so often. It's a small blessing, as I would have probably gone insane. There is very little you can do as an infant. Sure, the woman comes in, picks us up and plays with us. She talks to us too. I am grateful for this, as I am started to understand her better. I still struggle with full sentences, and I am still fairly clueless when the man talks, as it is so rare. I am getting stronger too. I haven't been able to roll over yet, but I can move my fingers. I was nearly in tears when I could feel them move. I have spent a lot of time watching the other baby. They always lay us right next to each other, as close as possible, so I have a front row view of its drooling. I've had brothers before. Many brothers. I cherished them all and the times we had together, but I lost all of them. I was the last one standing, left with the responsibility of the clan, of the village, and honestly, I didn't need another one. This wasn't my family anyways. I could roll over now. I believe that makes me 4 or 5 months old. At least, it was around that time that my nephew could roll over. The man officially looks like a zombie. I take a small amount of pride in that. That's what he gets for continuing to add Chan to my name. The woman doesn't look much better, and I do feel remorseful about that. She's starting to grow on me. Maybe it's hormones, the kind that encourage a child to latch to their mother. Whatever the reason, the important part is I can now roll over. Or to be exact, I can now roll away from the drooling brat. I am a year old now. Normally I would be celebrating the fact that I can now walk, understand complete sentences, eat without someone roughly sticking a utensil in my mouth, but ever since I found out, it's all I can think about. I didn't believe them at first. I thought they were just trying to be cute since I'm so adorable, their words, not mine. I should have known better though. I had prided myself on my intelligence in the past. My name should have been a big glowing sign. I was reborn. As a girl. My life as Senju Tobarama has officially concluded. And my life as Nara Kanoko has begun. Seriously. What buffoon names both his children, dear? It was a quiet morning in Konoha. The sun was just starting to rise and the birds have just started chirping. Many of the citizens have yet to get out of bed, while the local merchants are organizing their goods, getting ready for the morning market rush. All in all, it was a peaceful morning in the village hidden in the leaves. Shikaku! Get your lazy butt out of bed! The matriarch of the Nara clan was running around the kitchen, getting ready for the morning. She had a lot to get done in a short amount of time. The deer needed to be fed and managed, breakfast needed to be cooked, the table set, and everything double-checked before she sent her family on its way for the day. Of course, she had to do this all herself. Her husband was about as helpful as a sack of potatoes. No, a sack of potatoes would be more useful, as she could use some for breakfast. She could always ask her daughter, as she was so diligent in her work and could complete a task with no complaint. Her daughter was the apple of her eye. No, this was her and Shikamaru's first day of the academy, she wouldn't put additional work on her little Kanoko. With a smile, Yoshino continued on making breakfast for her family while going over again in her head what her 2 children would need for their first day. Upstairs, the 2 said children were waking up. Well, Kanoko was waking up. She stretched a little before getting out of bed and making her way to the bathroom across the hall. She was a morning person, like her mother, and only looked slightly tired as she fished around the mirror cabinet for her toothbrush. As she started to brush her teeth, she took a look at her appearance. Her dark brown hair was mess. She still struggled with having long hair. She would have preferred to keep it at the length she had in her past life, but her mother loved her hair, always saying how happy she was that Kanoko took after her, more than her father. In an effort to appease her, Kanoko kept growing it, and it now reached a couple inches past her shoulders. Kanoko started to brush her hair, and then wrapped it up into a bun with a few loose strands of hair sticking out like spikes. She had no bangs and only 2 loose pieces of hair curling out from behind her ears to frame her face, much like her mother's hair. After finishing in the bathroom, she walked back to her room. Kanoko's father, Naro Shikaku, was the head of the Nara clan as well as the Jounin commander, and had both the wealth and power to back up those claims. As such, Kanoko lived in a fairly large house, in the Nara forest lands, away from other families. However, even though the house was large enough to fit 3 families, Kanoko and Shikamaru shared a room. This started when they were young, as Yoshino wanted her children to be close by if they needed her and Shikaku found it too troublesome to travel from room to room to care for his heirs. Getting out of bed was difficult enough. This, of course, was supposed to be temporary until they grew old enough to share the same room. Kanoko was overjoyed when she was moved to her own room. Shikamaru, for as lazy as he is, latches on like a koala bear at night. No amount of kicking, hitting, elbowing, pillows, or blankets stopped him. And he hadn't outgrown his drooling yet either. To say Kanoko was happy when she was given her own bed would be an understatement. Her happiness was short-lived, however. Flashback. Kanoko had laid down in her new room and bed a while ago, and was just starting to fall asleep. She never felt so relaxed before. Who knew having another person taking up valuable sleeping space could be stressful? She thought with her eyes closed. Kanoko opened an eye when she heard her door open slightly. A small amount of light came in, enough to make out a small form at the door. Shikamaru, go back to bed, she grumbled out. He stared back at her. Shikamaru has these dark beady eyes that has always unnerved her. He continues to give her a bored stare before closing the door behind him and making his way onto her bed. I said no, she drowned out, not bothering to sit up. He stopped his movements, and this time he kept his gaze away. He kept his head turned to the side, not saying anything or moving away. This was another thing that annoyed her to no end. In the past, she had a variety of childish behaviors she had to put up from her brothers. Loud complaints and overdramatic whining was what she was used to. Silence with the occasional gruff or the word troublesome, and she was beyond done with that word, were the typical responses she got from her brother. And it annoyed her to no end. During her musings, she noted he still had not moved or said anything. Shikamaru. What? What is it you need? She asked, if only so she could finally go to sleep. The response she received was a mumble. I have no idea what you said. Kanoko sighed this time. Feeling a sort of defeat, Shikamaru started to move away from the bed and trotted slowly to the door. Finally, Kanoko thought as Shikamaru opened the door to leave. Before he completely left through the door, he took one last look back at Kanoko. His face, for once, didn't hold a bored look, but rather a disappointed and lonely look. He quickly looked away though, and started to close the door. Wait. Shikamaru looked back when his sister called. Kanoko didn't say anything else, she just patted the spot next to her. With this, Shikamaru slinked back to Kanoko's bed after closing the door. He snuggled under the sheets and next to his sister. Don't think this is going to be an every night thing, she told him sternly with a frown before closing her eyes again, missing his small smile. End flashback. It of course turned into a nightly occurrence, and soon Shikamaru started stuffing all his clothes in her dresser. She protested of course, but Shikamaru just slept through her nagging. Kanoko walked over to her dresser and pulled out a pair of dark gray shorts and a navy blouse with pink flowers and the Nara clan symbol on it. Kanoko didn't enjoy wearing such girly clothes, but again, whatever makes her mom happy. She regularly gets a front row seat to her ranting at Shikamaru and Shikaku, and she would like to stay on her new mother's good side. Once Kanoko is dressed, she looks back at her bed. She sees the lump in the covers that still has yet to move. Maybe she has finally got lucky and her brother passed peacefully in the night. She sees the lump twitch and knows she is not getting lucky anytime soon. With a grumble, she walks over to the bed and rips off the sheets. Shikamaru's eyebrow twitches, but he still refuses to open his eyes. If you don't get up, Ka-san is going to come and screaming at you, she says in a low and annoyed voice. He still doesn't respond, so she walks over and rips the pillow he is holding onto. He was holding onto rather tightly, so his top half follows the pillow to the ground. Ugh. Troublesome woman, he mutters as he tiredly stares at his sister upside down. You have 1 minute to get ready. That's all Kanoko says before walking out and down the stairs to the dining room. Kanoko. Good morning. Can you set the table for me please? Your good-for-nothing father is taking forever to feed the deer, her mother asks as she enters the room. Good morning, Ka-san. And certainly, is Kanoko's response as she sets the table. Did you wake up your brother? Hi. Good, I don't want you guys late for your first day at the academy. Are you excited? Her mother asks with a large grin. After setting the table, Kanoko sits down at the bar to talk to her mother while she cooks. Hi. I am eager to learn more about the village and becoming a ninja. Before Kanoko can continue, she is interrupted by a large yawn from her brother. He lazily walks to the dining table and sits down. Kanoko thinks irritated, great, now Yoshino is going to yell at him since he has no manners. Shikamaru! You get over here and greet your mother properly with a good morning, Yoshino screams from the stove. Troublesome woman is the only response she gets. Yelling is all Kanoko hears next. Why couldn't have stayed dead? Was that really too much to ask? Man, this is such a drag. Shikamaru complained, following his sister with his hands behind his head. Kanoko just continued to walk down the street, eyes focused on the path ahead. Kanoko couldn't say she was any more excited than her brother. What could she possibly learn that she didn't already know? In her prime, she created a number of jutsus that are now considered forbidden, had aided her brother in the creation of this village, and knew a world before peace. Compared to that, the academy was going to be the easiest thing she has ever done, outside of breathing. However, that doesn't mean she will moan about it out loud. She had too much pride for that. As they continued to walk towards the academy, Kanoko took a moment to observe the village. Much of it was as she remembers in her previous life. Civilians and ninjas alike walked around the town, gathering at certain stands, laughing or conversing peacefully. The places and people may have changed, but she could still feel the warm and peaceful energy from when her brother still roamed these roads. It was hard to imagine that these streets were once a battlefield, but she would always remember. Looks like we're here. Sigh, it's troublesome, but I guess we don't have a choice. Kanoko looked back at her brother as he spoke, then forward and realized he was correct. She doesn't remember the trip here. Kanoko berated herself for losing sense of her surroundings before following her brother into the academy. After they found the classroom they would be in, Shikamaru plopped down at the nearest desk and put his head down for a small nap. Maybe if I sit as far away as possible, people will think we aren't closely related, Kanoko thought as she made her way to the back of the classroom. When she sat down, she took an opportunity to look at the children in the room. Fairly large with face markings, likely an Akimichi. Glasses and lots of clothes, Aburaim. Pink hair? Odd. Long hair with pupilless blue eyes, my best guess is Yamanaka. Pale eyes, Hyuga. Kanoko moved around in her seat to get a better look at some of the other children. There aren't as many clan children here as I expected. Perhaps the clans have changed over time and I can no longer recognize the signs of each clan. Kanoko continued to observe the occupants in the room with curious eyes. Okay, class. Take your seats. Come on now. I said take your seats, shouted a tall brown-haired man with a spiky ponytail. Everyone quickly ran to the nearest seat and looked up at the teacher silently. Good. Okay, so I want you all to introduce yourself. We will start at this end and go around the room. Just your name and one fact about yourself. I'll start. My name is Yumino Irika and this is my first year teaching. Now next, he said with a big smile before motioning to the kid at the front. Why would you tell us that this is your first year teaching? Now I have even less faith in learning anything useful, Kanoko thought as the first kid introduced himself. She had a frown on her face, thinking about her depressing future before suddenly getting poked in the side. She barely turned her head as she glared at the person doing the poking. It was the weird pink-haired girl from before. Kanoko stared at her until she finally whispered, "What? Do you think we should be worried?" she shyly asked while avoiding eye contact. Kanoko raised an eyebrow. About what? The girl then pointed at a window behind and to the right of Irika-sensei. A blob of yellow and orange was making its way through the window rather clumsy. After making it through without much noise, the boy looked at the teacher and snickered with his hand over his mouth before trying to sneak around. Idiot, is all Kanoko said before closing her eyes, trying to convince herself that she wasn't in a classroom full of little kids. This was going to be a long couple of years. Did you honestly think you could sneak past me? Irika-sensei yelled at the boy when he tripped over an eraser and ran into the teacher's desk. Oh, come on. This class was impossible to find and I'm barely even late. Give me a break, yelled the boy as he pouted before running to a seat with a large grin on his face. Fine. Then you're next. Name and a fact about yourself, other than your inability to arrive on time. The teacher was red in the face, and you could tell he was trying to calm himself. As he said, it was his first year teaching and he wasn't quite used to troublemakers yet. What is inability? Did you just make fun of me? The boy asked with a frown, stand up and leaning on the desk in front of him. No, just forget it. Now tell us your name, and something about you already. The boy sat back down with his arms crossed. Fine. He then broke out in a grin and yelled, My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm going to be the Hokage. A chorus of groans and Nadahe started. I am too. Just you all watch. Believe it. He yelled back, jumping up onto the desk behind him, getting in the personal space of a black-haired boy. Sit down, Naruto, Irika-sensei screamed while pulling him back into his chair. Now let's continue on with our introductions. And no erupting from anyone. He finished with a pointed look to the class. Kanoko zoned out again, not bothering to listen to any of the kids. It wasn't important anyways. Soon, she would pass the requirements and start her career as a ninja. Again. None of these children meant anything to her, nor would they matter to her in the future. Kanoko then saw her brother get up. "My name is Nara Shikamaru and that girl is my sister," he stated in a bored tone, pointing at Kanoko. "That little," Kanoko thought, grinding her teeth. So much for pretending she didn't know him. They continued the introduction until it got to Kanoko. She stood up and started, "My name is Nara Kanoko and I." Kanoko stopped for a second, trying to think about something to say. "And I was once known as Senju Tobarama, the second Hokage, younger brother to Senju Hashirama, and I died many years ago, only to be reincarnated into the body of a girl, whose family consists of an aloof and lazy father, an equally lazy and irritating brother, and a possibly insane mother who likes to yell. I still can't form chakra the way I want to or used to, and it is driving me insane. I can't tell anyone that I'm Tobarama because I'll either be killed, laughed at, sent to the insane asylum, or other horrible things. So here I am, stuck introducing myself to a bunch of infants who have no idea what I'm talking about." Kanoko shut her eyes and thought, "Yeah, that won't go over well." She looked over to her brother, stretching her mind for an idea, and went with the first thing that popped in her head. "And I don't like pineapples." Shikamaru just gave her a blank stare back before drifting off to sleep again. Kanoko could already tell that this was going to be the best 4 years of her life. Not. You would think being a key player in the creation of the village hidden in the leaves and becoming its second Hokage would earn you a little respect. At the very least, a supporting role in the tale. Nope, Senju Tobarama was a footnote, a glorified footnote in the tale of the village hidden in the leaves. Better than that, even Uchiha Madara had a leading role in the tale, granted, as a villain, but a leading role, nonetheless. Okay, so maybe Kanoko was making this a bigger deal than it was, but honestly being surrounded by all these kids made her feel the need to be childish. And it was this childish tantrum that was the leading cause of the events that day. The day Kanoko made an enemy she would forever regret. "Okay, class. You are dismissed for today. Don't forget, your assignment is to write down why you want to be a ninja and bring it to class tomorrow for discussion," Iruka-sensei told the class loudly as everyone gathered their things. Kanoko was still grumbling in her head about the day's history lesson. She got up, trying to make a quick escape out the door, but was having difficulties getting past all the chatting kids. "Ano, Kanoko-chan?" Kanoko turned around to the voice that called her, with a slight tick on her head. It was the pinkette again. What was her name? "Hi," she answered. I was wondering while the girl was fidgeting, unsure of herself and what she wanted to ask. Kanoko was slowing, running out of patience, but quickly told herself that this was a little girl she was dealing with, and she needed to be calm. Taking a small breath, she said slowly, "Don't worry, please just ask me your question." Kanoko tried to follow it up with a kind smile, but it came out more as an awkward smirk. She was horrible with children. "Well, do you mind if we walk together to Kunoichi class?" "What? Kunoichi class?" Kanoko asked with a worried tone. "Hi," was the girl's simple response. They stared at each other for a moment, the girl with a lost and hopeful look and Kanoko with a shocked and pale expression. Suddenly, a dark aura flooded the room. "Eek. Sorry," the pink-haired girl screamed with small tears as she ran away from Kanoko. "They can't possibly be serious. I spent how many hours learning a history that is only loosely true and now I have to go to a Kunoichi class? What do they do in Kunoichi class anyways? Press flowers? Senju Tobarama will not press flowers." Kanoko thought, spilling negative energy in waves. How many more blows to her ego must she endure? Maybe next they'll run tests on everyone and learn she has the chakra reserves of a small rodent and start training her how to be the perfect housewife. Kanoko started stomping towards the classroom doors and thought, "I'd like to see them try." Crash. "Hey! What's the big idea, huh?" Kanoko looked down at the kid she just knocked over in her rage. She looked like a gangster that was just disrespected. It was that idiot that failed to sneak into the classroom earlier. "I asked you a question. What are you, deaf?" he asked, getting up into her face with his bottom lip sticking out and eyes narrowed. "Do you have a problem with me? Huh. Huh." He then got into a fighting stance with his hands moving all over the place. Kanoko just stood there, shaking in anger. "Tobarama, calm down. You are above this. Just breath," Kanoko told herself, in an attempt to control her anger. A ninja must suppress their emotions. This childish anger is beneath you. Naruto, of course, took her shaking as fear and stopped moving around and instead took a victory pose. Haha. Scared of my super amazing ninja skills? I understand completely. No worries, the great Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage, forgives you. He finished with a large mischievous grin and a loud laugh. He turned round, but not before saying, maybe with hard work and lots of practice you will have the guts to face me. Ha ha ha! Suddenly Naruto was yanked away from his attempt to leave and dragged right into the purple and angry face of one Nara Kanoko. Listen here, you little bastard. I'm not going to let some idiot mock me. I don't care if you are an Uzumaki, you're just some third-rate ninja who's not going to become a genin, let alone become the Hokage. With that, Kanoko roughly shoved Naruto to the ground before roughly walking right over him. Without turning around, Kanoko, in a low voice said, "You couldn't hit me if I was tied to a pole and were unconscious." As a final blow, she said, "You're just a village idiot." Kanoko then continued to make her way to the exit, ignoring the shocked faces staring at her and Naruto. With barely noticeable tears in his eyes, Naruto quickly shook the hurt away and turned it into anger, yelling, "I don't know who you are, but you and I are rivals. Did you hear me? I'm going to beat you, you bastard." "I'd like to see you try," was Kanoko's only response as she left the room for her next class. It was later, eating dinner with her family, that the gravity of the situation hit her. She, Nara Kanoko, previously Senju Tobarama, threw a tantrum. A childish, hair-pulling, name-calling tantrum. She deserved the flower-pressing classes. She really did. Elsewhere, a shadowy figure cracked open a window to the academy classroom. The figure quickly jumped from the window into the classroom. "Haha! I'll show her. This will be my best prank yet. No one will ever see this one coming. Watch out, team! Uzumaki Naruto is the best. Believe it!" It was another bright and peaceful day in the village hidden in the leaves. The day was just starting and families were waking up, getting ready for the day. In one particular household, things were normal, beginning the way they do every day. "Shikako! Get your sorry ass out of bed!" Kanoko walked in the class doors behind her brother. She walked to the same seat as the day before, hoping to see the pink-haired girl to apologize to for her behavior yesterday. "My actions were unbecoming and unacceptable. I must take responsibility for my actions," she thought, sitting down. As she watched the door for her, she noticed it was the Uzumaki she got in a fight with. "That's right. I will need to apologize to him as well," she thought, watching him make his way to the seat in front of her. Their eyes met before he sat down, but not directly in front of her, just off to the side. He had a blank stare, before turning around and sitting down, but not before Kanoko caught the tail end of a devious smirk. Kanoko narrowed her eyes in suspicion and asked herself, what is he up to? "Uzumaki. I wanted to." She didn't get to finish as Irika-sensei called the class to order. "Okay, class. In front of each of you is a pencil and paper. Now this piece of paper is very important. This is your registration form as a ninja, so take your time before filling it out. No second chances," he finished before motioning the class to start. Kanoko looked down at her pencil. There was some sort of odd grip on it. She had seen a few of them in stores, but never used one. Some of these new inventions still got the better of her some days. Pushing that aside, she grabbed the pencil and moved it to the paper. Once the pencil hit the paper, the pencil snapped in half where the grip was and black ink sprayed out all over her and her paper. "What the hell?" Kanoko thought, trying to rub the ink off of her, only making it worse. Looking at her ruined paper, she picked it up and started walking to Irika-sensei. "Sensei, my pencil," in absence of a better word, exploded, and my pap. Kanoko didn't get to finish her statement as she tripped over an invisible wire and went down hard, face first. "Nara-san. Are you okay?" Irika-sensei asked, running over to Kanoko. He helped her off of the ground, while she stared at wire, noting where it was coming from. "That little brat," she thought in simmering anger. She looked over at Naruto. His eyes were shaped as upside-down crescent moons, and he had his hand over his mouth. "Nara-san. Do you know WH?" Irika-sensei started before Kanoko interrupted him with a pointed look and replied, "My paper is ruined, may I please have another one?" Irika-sensei just stared, bewildered at Kanoko's statement before saying, sure. Just one moment." After taking the new form from Irika-sensei, Kanoko went back to her seat, but not before acquiring another pencil. She sat down, monitoring Naruto for any other surprises. "I refuse to be bested by a child." A few hours, Irika-sensei left the class for a small break. Some of the children left to roam the halls or go outside, but Kanoko stayed at her desk. She didn't feel like moving and reasoned it was due to her genes. She wished she was born to a more motivated clan. Naruto also hadn't moved, but had long since put his head down and took a nap. Kanoko wasn't too worried about any other possible pranks, as she now knew of the possibility, and was keeping a sharp watch of her surroundings. Her gaze drifted to the person in front of her. It was an Inuzuka, from what she gathered. He was also sleeping with his head down. Nara-san? Kanoko looked to her left. Before her, standing, was the pink-haired girl again. Kanoko had passed a note to her, while in class, stating that she would like to talk to her. Hi. I wanted to apologize, Ano. I don't know your name, Kanoko said in a bland tone. Look up at her. Oh. My name is Haruno Sakura, she said with a timid smile. Anyways. Sakura, I wanted to apologize. I was upset at something else and I scared you with my actions. I assure you that. That's it. Was the only warning Kanoko got, before being socked in the face and then tackled roughly by the Inuzuka boy. Let's back up a bit. What Kanoko missed when she was talking to Sakura was Naruto slapping the Inuzuka from behind, before quickly putting his head down, leading the boy to believe the person behind him had hit him, aka Kanoko. Naruto did this 3 times, each time getting worse, until the Inuzuka kid couldn't take it anymore and decided to get his revenge. Against Kanoko. After getting over the shock and some of the pain of getting hit, Kanoko started to fight the boy that was on top of her. She elbowed him roughly, yelling, "Get off me, you filthy mutt!" After pushing him off and getting up, she yelled, "What the hell's your problem? Do you not have any sense of decency? Or do you only know how to sit, fetch, and play dead? Stop comparing me to a dog, bitch. You're the one that attacked me first," he barked, getting onto his feet. "I did no such thing," Kanoko spat back. "Did too." "I did not." "Did too." "I will not stand here and argue about actions that I did not take. Now walk away, while I still afford you the opportunity," Kanoko loudly commanded. After growling at each other for a time, the boy stomped away, while Kanoko fixed her chair and sat back down. What in the world is wrong with the children these days? Kanoko thought, glaring at the class before her. Sakura must have been scared off by the fight, as she was no longer anywhere to be seen. Just as Kanoko started to calm down, she spotted a laughing blonde, out of the corner of her eye. Uzumaki, she thought with a growl. This is his doing. She continued to glare daggers at Naruto until Iruka-sensei came back in and started class again. You're safe right now, Uzumaki, but just you wait. Kanoko took extra precautions, making her way through the classroom and out the door once class finished. Thankfully there were no kunoichi classes today, so she could head straight home, to plan. She had just made it outside when her brother caught up to her. He caught her off guard by placing his hand on her shoulder from behind. As a result, he went airborne over her shoulder. When he landed on his back, he looked up at his sister without moving and asked in a bored voice, "What's your problem?" She simply stared at him for a second before twisting her head back and forth, observing her surroundings with a small amount of paranoia. She turned back at her brother and muttered, "Nothing. Now get up. We're going home." And with that, she walked around her brother and towards her clan's compound. She only made it a few steps before failing 2 feet down a ditch. How the 5 nations L did I fall for that? And how did no one else fall in this hole? Ah ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. You totally fell for it. Literally. You fell for it. Ha ha ha. All Kanoko could see was the outline of person with spiky hair. 3 guesses on who it was. Fucking Uzumaki. Naruto. Naruto then ran off laughing, not wanting to stick around for the consequences. Hey sis. Looks like you've dug yourself into a hole. I hate you. The Nara clan forest was a large expanse of land, completely covered by trees. It was located on the outskirts of Konoha and is a unique forest within the Land of Fire. A plentiful amount of deer roamed the area and those of the Nara clan were entrusted to look after them. The Nara clan, among their skills in strategies, deduction, and ninjutsu, they were also known for their scholarly dedication to the medical field. Many modern remedies were created by the Nara clan. One of their most common ingredients were antlers from these deer. It in turn produced medicines. There was a condition, however: no one but members of the clan are allowed to step foot into the forest without permission. For this reason, the forest was quiet and peaceful. After all, The Nara clan certainly wasn't known for their loud demeanor, but rather they're too lazy to speak principle. This quiet and serene setting was exactly what Kanoko believed was needed to focus on her training, molding chakra. Kanoko sat on the ground, far enough away from her home to be out of sight, but not too far in case her mother needed her. Or get lost. If Kanoko was being honest with herself, it would be the latter. After crossing her legs, she picked up a fallen leaf and held it in her hand. She tried to focus her chakra into the leaf. Nothing happened. She closed her eye, focusing on her chakra, which formed in her stomach. She tried to move it around, but by the time she could feel it get to her arms, it would dissipate. Curse this body, Kanoko thought, glaring at the leaf in her hand. Kanoko had been struggling for some time with her chakra. Normally, only regular civilians had chakra reserves so low that they couldn't form their chakra, but Kanoko was from a ninja family and a long-standing clan. This shouldn't be an issue. She had contemplated asking her father for help, as there may be something relating to the Nara clan that had an answer to this, but she had observed Shikamaru as he was forced, trained, and he did not have the same problem. I'm doing something wrong. I have to. Kanoko focused her thoughts and energy into her arm again, and by extension the leaf. It did not stick. Perhaps this is a consequence of reincarnation? Kanoko looked up from her arm, towards the sky. She stared at the clouds and thought, what good am I, if I can't form chakra? I can only guess that my presence indicates a dark future ahead, but how am I supposed to defend my home, with this limitation? She stared at the clouds passing by slowly for a while longer before she felt a whoosh of air. She turned her head, noticing someone laying down next to her, gazing at the clouds and longing. Not someone, her brother, Shikamaru. She opened her mouth to ask a question, but decided she didn't have anything to ask, at least nothing she cared to know. Instead, she laid down on her back. It was moments like these that she was reminded of her first family, of her little brothers and her older goofy one. They never got much of a chance to lie down like this, as there was always a battle to fight or a task to complete, but they would have a few small, peaceful moments together. She looked to her left, towards her brother, barely moving her head. Her mouth settled into a small smile as she thought, I guess he's growing on me. She closed her eyes, enjoying the fresh air blowing through and the warmth of the sun. Ka-sen said she needs you to run errands? Kanoko gave Shikamaru a bland look and said, No, I heard her tell you to run errands. Shikamaru shrugged and said, I'll tell her you're picking on kids at school. Kanoko's and Naruto's feud had not dissipated that day in any way. Much of the class was now aware of Naruto's declaration of rivalry against Kanoko, and Kanoko refused to submit to the little boy. Her pranks, though she would never call them that, were subtle and clever, sometimes so much so that even Naruto had no idea who pranked him. Not that that was too difficult to accomplish. You little brat, Kanoko thought, staring at her brother bewildered. She got up from her spot, dusting herself off before looking down at her brother. She gave him a pointed look before saying, Give me the list. Kanoko walked down the street into town. It was still early in the morning, so businesses were just opening up. However, What is this? Yelled a man Kanoko didn't know. She turned the corner and found out what all the fuss was about. Paint. Everywhere. All of the sides of the buildings and even parts of the roofs had graffiti. The writing was poor, and she couldn't make out what it said. She got distracted from the buildings when she heard a familiar crackle. Uzumaki. Uzumaki Naruto, at your service, Naruto yelled from on top of the arch above the street. As he jumped off, he shouted, I'm going to become the Hokage, no matter what. Hey! Come back! Yelled the villagers, trying to catch up to him. Kanoko saw him running down the street towards her. He didn't see her. Instead, he was laughing and looking back at the adults chasing him. He made a big mess this time, one man said with his arms crossed. Another villager agreed and said, Even if we wanted to make a complaint, we can't, because he doesn't have any parents to complain to. Kanoko looked at Naruto as he passed, still not noticing her. An orphan, huh? Kanoko knew that she probably should have felt pity or at least sadness learning this, but she was raised in constant war. She had lost her younger brothers before they were even old enough to have children of their own. Orphans were common, unfortunately. Still, she looked back at Naruto. He wasn't smiling anymore. After finishing her mother's errands, she walked through the door at home. Setting the bags down on the table, she called out to her mother, Tadaima-ka-san. Okiri Kanoko-chan. Her mother greeted her back. Yoshino walked into the room and started helping her unpack all the groceries. How was your day, Kanoko? And I thought I sent your brother out for this stuff, her mother asked in a warning tone. Kanoko, in her past life, may have faced many evils, but Yoshino was a force to be reckoned with. Hey, if she had the Jounin commander at her beck and call, who was Kanoko to think her stood a chance, especially with her little chakra problem? Hi, you did. I had to go into town anyways, so I volunteered, Kanoko said slowly with a blank look. Yoshino stared at Kanoko with narrowed eyes, trying to make her sweat, before turning around and continuing to help with the groceries. So how did your day go then? Her mother asked with a smile. Kanoko let out a sigh of relief before answering her mother. The Nara family sat at the table, eating dinner. Shikako was eating and reading a report from work while Yoshino talked about her day. Shikamaru was eating slowly with lazy movements while Kanoko was listening to her mother. Someone has to, she reasoned to herself. Then a light bulb went off. Ka-san? Kanoko asked, interrupting her mother. Yes, Kanoko? Her mother asked in wonder. Kanoko held in a smirk before turning her face into a small pout. I saw Shikamaru playing with his shadow today. That's not fair. How come Toussaint taught Shikamaru the clan jutsu, but not me? When I asked Shika, he said it was because Toussaint liked him more because he's a boy. Does Toussaint really love Shikamaru more than me? For a final touch, she forced some small tears to come out and settle on her cheeks. It took a lot from Kanoko to swallow her adult pride and stoop to this level, but she had been losing a number of battles lately, and reasoned it was only logical to change tactics. And Shikamaru's face made every painful moment worth it. So, worth it. Shikako! Shikamaru! A crash, 2 high-pitched screams, and a series of begging, not necessarily in that order, were the next things heard from Nara House. And if you listened really closely, you would have heard an evil chuckle as well. Ka! Ka! Was heard from a lone crow passing by the academy. Inside the academy walls, Irika-sensei's homeroom class was about to begin. Kanoko sat on the right side of the class, near the back. Her brother, Shikamaru, sat on the left with his new friend, Choji. Her brother was still sore about the small prank she played on him the night before. After her mother was finished with the both of them, Kanoko felt a small amount of remorse and guilt over her actions. Her father especially, because he hadn't actually done anything wrong besides siring Shikamaru. Kanoko was sitting up straight, as normal, awaiting the beginning of class, when she saw Naruto run in. He looked around for a moment, then expressed joy when he pinpointed what he was looking for. Grabbing the dry eraser, he placed it at the top of door opening, and closed the sliding door to keep it place. He then pulled out some grease or oil and spread it on the floor, in front of the door, on the classroom side. That idiot is going to get himself in trouble, Kanoko thought with a small frown. She looked around the room and noticed that many of the kids were now completely focused on Naruto. Many of them had looks of joyful anticipation. Is this why he does it? For attention? Kanoko didn't understand. She hadn't known anyone who acted this way. Being this foolish would mean death. Naruto proceeded to stand in front of the door with a large toothy grin. Kanoko only showed a small amount of shock as she thought, what kind of stupid is he? He's definitely going to get caught, just standing right there with that stupid grin on his face. Whoosh drop. Irika-sensei just stared at the eraser as it fell. He then looked up and gave Naruto a blank stare. Naruto started slowly chuckling like an idiot, trying not to celebrate his victory just yet. Irika-sensei then looked up to the class and asked in a warning voice, okay, who did this? Kanoko returned his look with a blank stare, thinking, seriously? Naruto is standing right in front of you? Of all the juvenile pranks, Irika-sensei finished, turning back to Naruto. Naruto just giggled again. Irika-sensei huffed before stomping his way towards Naruto. He didn't make it very far before slipped on the grease. Waha! Bam! Irika-sensei landed hard and flat onto his back. Ha! I got you! That eraser was nothing but a decoy, Naruto yelled in celebration of his genius. I'll give it to him. It was well planned, Kanoko thought watching the exchange. Naruto then finished with, and you totally fell for it too. Irika-sensei slowly got up and growled, Naruto. Instead of ranting at Naruto, as the whole class expected, looking forward to, Irika-sensei stopped and stared at him. He seemed to be thinking of something, but had a look of distaste. It was quiet for a moment before Naruto grinned and threw up his hands and said, I know. I'll go wait out in the hall. Naruto started to make his way to the door with a grin before Iruka-sensei stopped him. No. Go and take your seat. Naruto stared up at Iruka-sensei in wonder. Confused, Naruto just walked slowly to the back of the room, where there was an open seat. Ah. I thought for sure he'd get yelled at. I was kind of looking forward to it, to tell you the truth. Kanoko heard Choji say to Shikamaru. She noticed Shikamaru shift around to sit up straighter, as his eyes narrowed at the scene before him. He thinks it's strange too. I wonder what his thoughts are, Kanoko thought, looking at her brother, then back to Iruka-sensei. Iruka-sensei walked over to the podium and said with a smile, Okay. The last few days I was subbing for your homeroom teacher, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, he will not be able to take over. So I would like to formally introduce myself as your new homeroom teacher. With that, let's open our books to Iruka-sensei started, but Kanoko wasn't listening. Instead, she looked over at Naruto. He looked lonely. Therefore, a person's chakra is greatly influenced by that person's mental energy. Iruka-sensei closed the book he had in his hand when he heard snoring. He walked towards the back and found Naruto snoozing away. Iruka-sensei's eyebrow twitched before he raised the book over Naruto's head. As he moved to slam it down, he stopped. He has that look again, Kanoko thought, narrowing her eyes on Iruka-sensei. Suddenly Naruto jumped up and said, Hey! Isn't it time for class to be over? Iruka-sensei looked to the front of the class at the clock and said, Oh. I didn't realize it was so late. Iruka-sensei walked down to the front. He turned around and in a bored voice said, Well, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Then he walked out of the room. Naruto snickered, jumping up from his seat and running over to the clock. He moved the big hand back a few minutes. Haha. I got him again. Iruka-sensei walked back into the class, startling Naruto, making him fall off the desk he was using to reach the clock. Looking up at Iruka-sensei from the ground, he said, Boy, that's smart, but how did you figure it out so quickly? Iruka-sensei gave Naruto a harsh look, like he was scum, before saying lowly, Just return to your seat. Kanoko stared at Iruka-sensei, not bothering to hide her shock this time. Was that really necessary? Naruto is a pain, but he's never shown signs of being a threat. Kanoko looked over to her black and spiky-haired classmate. If anyone should be treated with suspicion, Kanoko thoughts drifted off. Okay, everyone. I want all demonstrate your skills in ninjutsu with each other, Iruka-sensei told the class. Kanoko's class was currently outside the academy, in one of the practice areas. At Iruka-sensei's announcement, the whole class whined. Ungrateful brats, Kanoko thought, glaring at her classmates. Iruka-sensei laughed nervously before saying, Don't worry. You're not being graded on this. This is only so I can assess where you are in your studies and plan how to proceed with our lessons. Looking at his papers, he continued, Okay, we'll start with a basic clone jutsu then. First up, Uchiha Sasuke. High-pitched squealing was heard next. Oh my! Sasuke-kun! Kanoko noted that nearly all of the girls in the class were cheering for Sasuke with hearts in their eyes. She stared at them, bewildered by their reaction. She caught her brother looking at her, so she turned her head to him. He pointed at her, then Sasuke, then made a small heart with his hands, all the while smirking. Her eyebrow twitched aggressively before turned away with an indignant look. She watched as Sasuke made a clone. The girls squealed again, before Naruto interrupted them, yelling that Sasuke's clone wasn't impressive and he knew which clone was real. Which he then attacked. Poof. Idiot. Kanoko thought, closing her eyes. There was no reason to continue watching Naruto make a fool of himself. His fight with Sasuke continued on for a while longer before Sasuke got in his face and said, I don't know what your problem is, but leave me alone. The Aburame kid added on by saying, All you're doing is interrupting our class and wasting all of our time. You're becoming an annoyance. That Hyuga looks like she wants to sock the Aburame in the face. I didn't think she had an angry bone in her body, Kanoko thought, looking at the pair. Naruto looked back and asked, What? The group of kids moved forward as another student said, He's right. But you're not just becoming an annoyance, that's all you've ever been or will be. Another kid looked at his friend and said, Hey, that's cruel, Hibachi. He then looked back at Naruto and said with a chuckle, But sometimes the truth hurts. What? Why you? Naruto went in for an attack when Iruka-sensei grabbed him. He then looked back at his students and scolded, Hey! Stop ganging up on Naruto! Naruto looked at Iruka-sensei and a genuine smile grew on his face. Sensei. Irika-sensei looked back at Naruto and stared. Oh no. It's that look again. This isn't going to end well, Kanoko thought with a slightly worried look on her face. Just ignore him. Naruto's face fell dramatically. He looked crushed. Irika-sensei then called the class to follow him. While everyone followed Irika-sensei, Naruto didn't move. He just looked at the ground. Kanoko looked back at Naruto. Flashback. Tobirama looked to his brother, Hashirama. Hashirama simply turned around and with a kind smile and cheerful eyes said, "The fellow countrymen of the Konoha make up each part of my body. Those of the village believe in me, and I believe in them. That's what it means to be Hokage." Flashback end. Kanoko looked up in irritation. Of course her brother would choose to haunt her at this moment. Closing her eyes for a moment in debate, she turned back around and walked slowly up to Naruto. You can never be too careful around him. He didn't notice her as she approached and stopped right in front of him. Kanoko continued to give Naruto a bored look, trying to think of something wise to say before she settled with, Naruto. Naruto looked up at Kanoko. After recognizing her, narrowed his eyes and looked ready to defend his pride. Kanoko reminded herself that they didn't get off on the best of terms. Kanoko turned her head to the side, not moving her body. She didn't do this heartfelt emotional stuff. Her philosophy was that a good ninja is a ninja without emotions. But the little voice in her head, that sounded an awful lot like a certain goofball Hokage, reminded her that she was dealing with a little boy. A little boy raised in peaceful times, and if he wanted to honor his deceased brother, he would treat him with kindness. Thought it was funny, Kanoko mumbled with a slight coloring of her face. Naruto's expression changed rapidly to shock and confusion. Huh? Kanoko still wouldn't look at Naruto, but said, "I thought your trick with the eraser and grease was funny." Naruto was silent as he stared at Kanoko. She took the silence as needing to say more, so she stumbled over her words trying to say, "And the clock trick. That one was good. I thought you had sensei that time." Closing her eyes with her eyebrows slanted down, with a slight twitch, she forced herself to take the final plunge and said a little loudly, "And Uchiha Sasuke's hair looks like the butt of a duck." Ack. That last one was too much. So unbecoming, Kanoko thought with another aggressive twitch to her eye, angry at herself and her immaturity. Not hearing anything, Kanoko opened her eyes to take a look at Naruto. Naruto had a large, open mouth, toothy grin, with big round blue eyes, with stars in them. Holy shit! Abort! Abort! Kanoko thought, backing up. Ha ha ha! Duck butt! It's perfect! Naruto yelled, running off after the class, likely to inform Sasuke of his new name. Kanoko watched Naruto run away. She had a bewildered and relieved look. That was a close call. I thought he was going to break out into tears or hug me to death. Kanoko thought with a bored look before trudging slowing back to class. But what neither Naruto nor Kanoko saw was a figure hanging around the corner, observing the whole thing. Hiruzen, third Hokage, smiled softly before walking away. It occurred to Kanoko that her second life would be a lot easier if she was born into another family. As a Senju, she would be surrounded by familiarity. Ideal. As an Inuzuka, she would have to endure the smell and instinctual behavior, her least favorite type of action, of her clansmen, but she would be free to roam and explore as she saw fit. Doable. As an Uzumaki, she would be able to focus on her few Injutsu abilities and even expand her knowledge, not mention access to a wealth of chakra. Perfect. Even as a civilian, she would be able to adapt her surroundings to her own will. After all, no civilian parent would be able to keep up with her, both physically and intellectually. Like taking candy from a baby. Sure, being born as a Yamanaka would be problematic, and as an Uchiha, well, they're all dead now, so that wouldn't have worked. But still. Life as a Nara was hard. Small chakra reserves were the first hurdle. Add in the ancient and idiotic sexism plaguing the Nara clansmen, and you had a recipe for disaster, at least if you a 100-year-old master of the ninja arts, hiding out in the body of a small girl. And if the complications of her clan weren't frustrating enough, she had to be born into this family, an extremely intelligent father, an overbearing and aggressive mother, and a clever shadow of a brother who had to know everything. Between her mother demanding her attention left and right, giving her as little alone time as possible, and the forever watchful eyes of her father, Kanoko never had time, or the ability, to research things important to her. Like the current state of worldly affairs. Where were the Senju? How come she never sees any of her former clansmen? Who were the current powers in the world? Not the Kage. They learn about them in the academy. But who were the ninjas that were feared across the great nations? What clans still existed and had new ones formed? Have any new bloodlines been discovered? Why was Fuinjutsu such a foreign subject in Konoha? Why couldn't she find any of her research documents, which she was sure she left for the common ninja to review? She wanted to know so much, but was it worth the risk of standing out? She may be from a clan known for its intelligence, and from the head family to boot, but asking for information that she discovered existed out of thin air? Or asking for something no child, even a really smart one, would want to know? Red flag. Red flag. Kanoko had heard her father talk to another ninja one night, about an Uchiha prodigy, a few years ago. He had, at a young age, shown a wisdom, intelligence, dedication, and kindness only found in the oldest and wisest of souls. She had contemplated using him as an example to support her curiosity to her father. Kanoko ultimately decided to wait it out. He was still young and she had time, she would wait to see how it will play out. And then one day, Kanoko woke up to her father running out of the house, in the dead of the night. She stayed up, waiting for her father to return, fearing the village was under attack. When he returned, she heard him tell Yoshino that all the Uchiha were dead. Murdered by one of their own. Uchiha Itachi. The prodigy. Rumors on the street where Itachi went insane. Kanoko knew better. Ninjas don't go insane without prompting. With this knowledge, Kanoko backed down from standing out too much. Sure, her goal was still to be the best among her classmates. After all, she wouldn't be bested by a group of children, but she wouldn't ask, pursue, or show knowledge of things she shouldn't. No one would ever know Nara Kanoko was once Senju Tobarama. Shikaku! Get your lazy butt out of bed! Kanoko opened her eyes, after being woken by her mother's yelling. Why does she have to yell every morning? Kanoko turned her head to the edge of bed before attempting to roll out of bed. Attempting being the key word here. A firm tug kept her in place. With a low groan, Kanoko turned to the thing holding her in place. Let go, she said sternly to her brother. Troublesome, it's too early and cold to get up, he said, his words muffled by the pillow and blanket. I wish he would grow up and sleep in his own room. If Yoshino hasn't already turned it into a guest room, Kanoko thought before telling her brother, tough. Now move. With that, Kanoko roughly tugged herself from the bed, taking Shikamaru with her. He groaned from his spot on the floor, before looking at his sister complaining, ugh, all women are the same, troublesome. Kanoko just gave him an unimpressed stare before responding with, at least we have an expansive vocabulary. Will you ever grow up? With that, Kanoko turned around and walked out the door to the bathroom. It was a free day today, which means no academy. Shikamaru and Kanoko were kicked out of the house by their mother, so the two of them split off into different directions. Shikamaru went to find a good spot to watch clouds or find shoji. Kanoko wasn't sure. Kanoko, on the other hand, had plans. For a few weeks, Kanoko had been exploring the village, looking for the perfect target, the sucker that would help her get some much-needed supplies for Fuinjutsu. Of course, that was only part of the problem. She had to find a victim, form a plan for said victim to do her bidding, find a hiding spot for the supplies, and then a secret spot to form seals and test them out. She had the spot, the Nara forest, the only benefit from being a Nara. She also had the hiding spot selected, Naruto's house. After all, it was completely understandable that an Uzumaki would have Fuinjutsu supplies. Kanoko had debated simply stealing Naruto's Fuinjutsu supplies, but after breaking in, she quickly ran out in fear. There were clothes, food, and garbage everywhere. There were smells that she had never smelled before, and she nearly puked after the experience. Luckily, when she was on the ground, holding her stomach, she found a good place to hide her supplies, so long as she created a barrier seal to lock other curious ninjas out. After that, she just needed a victim and a plan. And recently, she had found a victim. Meito Guy. Kanoko had observed him for some time. To get those Fuinjutsu supplies, she needed a ninja. Not just any ninja would do, however. A genin walking up to a Fuinjutsu supplier would just be turned away. Even a chunin would be suspicious. But a jounin? Not even a second glance. There was one problem. You didn't become a jounin by being stupid. Kanoko knew that she would have to tread lightly, and needed to get enough intel to complete this without being discovered. Thankfully, Meito Guy was a leaf jounin. He wasn't as oblivious as he appeared, as Kanoko discovered, but he did have a couple weak points, his passion for youth and one Hataki Kakashi. If Kanoko plays her cards right, she'll hit both spots simultaneously with Mato Guy none the wiser. Now to put her plan into action. Mato Guy was currently at the dango shop, enjoying some fresh dango when he heard his rival's name coming from behind. He turned around with a full mouth and saw a young girl talking to an owner of a Fuinjutsu shop. Arguing actually. The girl pouted, not liking the answer from the merchant, before slumping away dramatically. Paying for his meal, he ran over to the girl, curious. Ohio young Kunoichi. My name is the great Mato Guy. I happened to notice you talking to that shop owner and thought I heard the name of my eternal rival, Hataki Kakashi. Guy spoke loudly with a twinkle in his grin. Kanoko looked up at him and shrugged. Hi. I heard one of my classmates say that Hataki Kakashi was Konoha's greatest ninja, outside the Hokage. I want to be a great ninja too. So I asked around, and did you know that Hataki-sama is a master of sealing or is really good at it? If I can learn sealing, maybe I could be as great as Hataki-sama. Kanoko tried her hardest to appear as an innocent child. Guy stared at Kanoko before starting to say, haha. You want to be a great ninja to forever defend the fair Konoha from all evils? That's great. But you know, Kakashi isn't the only great ninja, actually he and I are equal rivals. Not a... Kanoko interrupted him with a frown. It's true. He and I have been rivals since we were your age. Guy defended himself, trying to keep a smile. Kanoko gave a look on contemplation, before saying, you may be rivals, but not equals. I bet you can't do any Fuinjutsu. Guy quickly responded with, our battles have been full of both youthful passion and great feats. Now, I may not have mastered the art of Fuinjutsu, but I assure you. Kanoko interrupted him with a scoff and said, if you can't do Fuinjutsu, you have no hope in ever beating the great Hataki Kakashi. With that, she crossed her arms and turned her head away, with her eyes closed. Lighting cracked in the background as Guy gaped at Kanoko. He hung his head in shame, before lifting it with fire in his eyes and shouted, you are right, young Kunoichi. I will learn Fuinjutsu, as my rival has, and best him at it. If I cannot, I will run around the village 100 times on my hands until I do. With that, Guy ran over to the Fuinjutsu supplier and asked quite loudly how much everything in stock would cost. The merchant was shocked before stumbling out the price. Mato Guy had saved a lot of money from his many S-ranked missions, so he exchanged the money required for the supplies. Guy wrapped all the supplies up in a large cloth, as there were no bags big enough, before tossing it over his shoulder and running off. Not until a well-aimed kunai nicked the cloth, dropping a good amount of supplies out. Enough to take care of Kanoko for a few years. Kanoko smirked at her handiwork before running off as well. Kanoko walked into her home, with a small yawn. Apparently plotting and carrying out said plot was more draining than she realized. She, once again, blamed her lineage. She greeted her mother before asking if she needed any help with dinner. Can you go get your brother? He's out back, playing shogi with a friend of your dad's, Yoshino said, going back to the stove. Kanoko just affirmed she would and walked out to the back. I didn't think Shikamaru knew how to play, she thought before opened the sliding the door and took a step out. Kanoko was shocked at the scene before her. Shikamaru was hunched over the shogi board with his hand on his chin, sharp eyes dissecting the board in front of him. From what Kanoko could see, his king was well fortified and most of his opponent's pieces were missing. However, the thing that shocked her most was his opponent, Shimura Danzo. She was sure. How many ninjas had that scar? And everything about him reminded her of the ninja who she helped train. She had no idea he was still alive. Kanoko knew her student, Hiruzen, was the Hokage, as she left things the first time, but she had never attempted to learn if her other students were still alive as well. And if she was to be honest, she wasn't sure how she felt about him sitting on the other side of a shogi board of her brother. The Danzo she remembered was loyal to Konoha, but there was always a shimmer of darkness underneath. She wondered if that darkness grew or was distinguished. Kanoko was taken out of her thoughts when she heard the sliding door behind her slam open. She quickly jerked her upper body to look behind her and saw her father, Shikaku. The negative energy flowing off of him surprised her. She had never seen him angry before. Danzo-san, welcome to my home. I did not realize you would be visiting. How can I be of service to the council? Her father asked, only looking at Danzo. Kanoko praised her father for his ability to control his voice. Nara-san, I am not here on behalf of the council. I was simply making my rounds around the village when I ran into your son. He had mentioned he had never played shogi before, such a shame, so I offered to teach him. He mentioned you had a board, so we came here and one game led to another. I didn't realize it was so late. Your boy is quite impressive. Picked up the game quickly and even beat me a few times. Though, I think I still came out winning. Danzo finished with a fake smile, standing up slowly. Ran across Shikamaru in the village? Shikamaru wouldn't move unless it's to get from one cloud watching spot to another, and he doesn't need to go through the village for that. Kanoko thought with narrowed eyes. Shikamaru stared up at Danzo, then Shikaku, before shrugging, choosing not to say anything. Good call, Shikamaru, good call. Shikaku just continued to stare blankly at Danzo with his hands at his side, but Kanoko did note that his fist clenched when Danzo praised Shikamaru. I see. Well, if you beg my pardon, Danzo-san, my family and I are about to sit down for dinner. You are welcome to join. Shikaku finished with a flat tone. Kanoko gazed at her father in wonder. Why would you invite him to the table? He obviously is up to something. Kanoko turned her gaze back to Danzo. Thank you, but I must be off. It was a nice distraction, perhaps another time? Danzo said, walking out through the house to the front door. Hi. Perhaps. Shikaku responded, his gaze following Danzo out the door. Kanoko just watched the door as it closed before looking over to her brother, who was yawning. She hoped Danzo was just making a show of power to her father, because she didn't know if she had it in her to lose another brother. Smack. Pound. Slash. Sounds of a force hitting a log could be heard in the Nara forest. Kanoko was currently taking hits at a practice log with a kunai in one hand. She panted, taking a small break, before going back at it. She did this every morning, afternoon, and night. She had so much to fix and improve in concern to this body. Her chakra reserve being one, glaringly large problem. The only way to improve her chakra reserves would be to physically train her body and mind. Kanoko knew her spiritual energy wasn't a problem, but even with years of training to her body and mind, she would still struggle to get to where she was before dying. On the bright side, she was slowly increasing her small chakra reserves. She could now flow chakra to her arm and out onto objects, which is critical to Fuinjutsu at the very least. After she finished her training, she would run to Naruto's house and grab her Fuinjutsu supplies. Then she would be able to start testing a theory she had been bouncing around in her head, stealing chakra from her opponents. Such a seal was going to prove challenging, however. Not only does she have to figure out a way to actually remove the chakra from the enemy, but then she had to find a way to adequately store it. Kanoko, as Tobirama, had created many storage seals, so that wasn't much of an issue, but where she stored it was the problem. Say she decides to steal the chakra, and then seal it in a scroll. What happens if the scroll is knocked out of her hand or it catches on fire? There were too many scenarios. A ninja battle is decided in seconds. She couldn't afford to waste those seconds. The only option she could think of right now was a seal on her body. It would be easily accessible and her opponent wouldn't be able to remove it from her without taking her body parts, which wasn't likely to happen. But then that again begs the question, how is she supposed to suck away their chakra? And say she figures that part out, she still hasn't come up with a way to introduce their chakra into her network, to use as her own. Kanoko knew it would take time, but if she wanted to be even remotely as powerful as she once was, she needed to figure out alternate forms of obtaining chakra. Kanoko stopped hitting the log in front of her and stood there panting. She wiped her forehead before heading back to her house. She reasoned she should get some water and a washcloth for her face before she continues her training. It was going to be a long night, after all. The academy was loud with chatter from students. Much to Kanoko's irritation, she hadn't arrived early enough. So, for today, she was sitting next to her brother today, waiting for class to begin. Next time, I'm leaving him home. Kanoko thought, glaring at her brother, who sat in between her and his friend, Choji. Iruka-sensei then came into the classroom and called the class to order. Okay. Let's start with roll call. Let's see here, where's Naruto? Iruka-sensei asked, looking around the room. Kanoko closed her eyes to focus on the chakras around her. She was just relearning her old skill and her range was still very limited, but she could at least feel those around her, and she couldn't feel Naruto. Next to her, Shikamaru narrowed his eyes and thought. He knows something. Kanoko thought. Shikamaru. What do you know? Kanoko asked her brother with a flat tone. Shikamaru looked back at her with a thoughtful look, saying, Yesterday, Choji and I were walking around the merchant section of the village, and we saw Naruto. He was in front of a mask shop. The owner threw a mask at him and told him to leave. Kanoko raised her eyebrow and asked, "What did he do?" Choji added in, "Nothing, from what we can tell," but everyone was looking at him weirdly. Kanoko looked back to her brother for clarification, weirdly. "Yeah. I can't explain it." Like they were unsure of him or scared. Shikamaru answered with his eyes closed, thinking back on the incident. Kanoko was confused. What was scary about Naruto? I'm missing vital information here, Kanoko thought to herself. She ignored whatever Iruka-sensei was talking about in favor of solving this mystery. The Nara family was eating breakfast, surprisingly, peacefully. Kanoko was sitting next to her father, while Shikamaru was across from her, with her mother at his side. They were all eating silently when, again surprisingly, Shikamaru interrupted the peace with a question. "Tusan, can I ask you about something that's been bugging me?" Kanoko's more mature side stopped her from making a smart remark in answer to his question. Shikaka finished his mouthful before asking, "What is it?" Shikamaru waved his chopsticks around and said, "It's about Naruto. Why does everyone avoid him like the plague?" Kanoko looked to her father, also curious about his answer. When no answer came, Shikamaru asked, "Did he do something wrong?" There was a bit of silence before Shikaka put his chopsticks down, asking, "Shikamaru, why don't you tell me how you feel about Naruto?" "Seriously? Now we're talking about our feelings?" It was a simple question that requires a factual answer. Ugh, this family bunch of emotional infants, well, except for Yoshino. Thank the Shinigami for her. Shikamaru looked shocked. You want to know how I feel?" No, we do not," Kanoko thought with distaste. Shikamaru looked away to think before saying, I never thought about it before." Looking back, he finished with, "Well, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he is pretty funny. I don't think we'll be buddies or anything, but it's not like I want to avoid him." Shikaka smiled at his son. "Well then, ignore the others. I say, treat him however you want to," Shikaka said, closing his eyes, still grinning. Kanoko looked up at her father, trying to communicate with her eyes, "You're not off the hook yet. I need more than that to be satisfied." Shikaka saw his daughter's look and sighed. She's just like her mother, Shikaka thought before returning to his food. Kanoko ditched her brother this morning, so she got a prime spot at the back of the class near the window. Rather happy with herself, she gazed out the window, thinking about the seal she was trying to create. She got distracted when Iruka-sensei came in and called the class to order. Iruka-sensei placed his hands on the desk and aggressively asked the class, "Okay. Has anyone seen Naruto?" He did not sound happy. "Nope, haven't seen him," Hibachi said with a grin and his hands up. Suddenly her brother got up and slammed his hands on his desk before shouting, "I saw him this morning heading into the back hills." "Pipe down, Shikamaru," Hibachi told Shikamaru, standing up with his friend to glare at her brother. "What are you doing?" Hibachi's friend asked. Iruka-sensei looked concerned before asking, "Into the back hills?" Leaning over slightly, Shikamaru continued, "He went looking for corpses, didn't he, Hibachi? Your pranks have gotten annoying and so have you. Stay here and study," Iruka-sensei shouted before running out in a cold sweat. "Way to go, Shikamaru! You're such a rat," Hibachi yelled at her brother. "Whatever, you went too far. You call Naruto an annoyance, but at least he is funny. You're just stupid," Shikamaru responded with an angry look back before sitting down. Hibachi was red in the face with anger. He reached out and grabbed Shikamaru's collar. "Shikamaru!" Choji screamed, scared for his friend. "Hibachi! Don't!" his friend yelled at him, hoping he'll let go of Shikamaru. "You're going to get it, Shikamaru!" With that, Hibachi pulled back his fist to hit Shikamaru. Shikamaru closed his eyes in anticipation. When Shikamaru didn't feel the blow, he opened his eyes. Hibachi's fist was being held, stopping the blow from occurring, and had a kunai pressed to his throat. "You will release my brother?" Kanoko's tone completely void of emotion. Her eyes were sharp and focused, staring directly at Hibachi, daring him to do anything but what she demanded. Hibachi was terrified. He let go of Shikamaru's collar, not daring to move an inch. Kanoko stared at Hibachi a little longer before stating, in a voice full of promise, "Don't you ever touch him again." And with that, she removed the kunai and released his fist before walking calmly back to her seat. The whole class was silent before opening their books to study, as instructed by their teacher. All but one. Shikamaru just watched his sister. I didn't think she cared. After a few minutes, the class decided this free period meant they could leave class. Even Shikamaru and Choji left to go get snacks. Kanoko stayed in her seat, following her instructor's orders. She couldn't stop this nagging feeling, however. From what Kanoko gathered, Naruto went into a part of the forest where a recent attack on the village had taken place. She reasoned that Iruka-sensei ran out to find him because other threats were suspected to be in the area. Well, it's nothing that concerns me. After all, Iruka-sensei went after him. All I would do is add to the chaos. Kanoko thought with her eyes closed. She was correct. She wasn't even a genin, and she was still working through some of her own limitations. She could even die, again, not ideal. Kanoko gazed out the window. Passing by with a book in his hand was a tall, silver-haired shinobi. I recognize him, he's one of Shikaku's subordinates. That means he's a jounin, Kanoko thought before jumping out the window. She ran up to the jounin and caught his attention by coughing loudly. Can I help you? He asked slowly, looking down. Hi. My teacher, Yumino Iruka, ran into the forest to catch a student in danger. I would like you to assist him, Kanoko told the jounin in a flat, no room for compromise voice. The jounin moved his face away from his book, raising an eyebrow at the demand before saying, Oh? And why should I? Kanoko stared back at him, not at all impressed, and stated simply, because the student's name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I have a feeling he's important to the village. Kanoko then turned around and walked away with her hands in her pockets, but not before adding with a wave, and if you require more motivation, my father's the jounin commander. I'm sure there is a plethora of D-rank missions that need completing. The jounin just stared shocked at Kanoko's back before taking off swift in the direction of the forest. Kanoko was walking back from the village library when she reached the academy. As she was passing it, she saw Iruka-sensei and Naruto at the tree with the swing. They both were smiling and laughing. They looked scraped up, but no worse for wear. A small smile formed on her face as she heard a piece of the conversation as she passed. Once she was far enough away, she looked toward the first Hokage's stone face with a smirk. The will of fire, huh? She closed her eyes, smile still on her face, as she continued on her path. Kanoko slowly ate her food that morning, thinking about the last 4 years. Things hadn't changed that much from when she first started the academy. She never bothered to make any friends, and many of the children she didn't even interact with. She looked over at Shikamaru. His attire had changed a bit. He now wore tan 3/4 pants, a fishnet shirt with a Nara clan half jacket over top. Outside of his clothes he hadn't changed at all. It nearly drove Kanoko insane that he never once bothered to complete any of the school work assigned to him. He defended himself, stating that the act of putting pen to paper was a drag. It was also a drag to have a twin brother, who, from an outside perspective, was as dumb as Naruto. The only black mark on her hard-worked and perfect record. Thinking of Naruto, he hadn't changed at all either. He still pulled pranks, many of which were aimed at her. That was another thing. Kanoko had hoped when Naruto got into his first fight with the Uchiha, his rivalry with her would end. After all, 2 rivalries? No sane person would place that burden on themselves. She, however, overlooked the fact that Naruto is not sane. And contrary to what other people tell you, Naruto can hold a grudge. It didn't help that Kanoko and Sasuke were continually performing above class standards. Honestly, Kanoko is just lucky that Sasuke hasn't pursued her as a rival. Well, he tried, but Kanoko acted as if the Uchiha didn't exist. If she thought Naruto could hold on to a silly grudge, she knew an Uchiha would be 10 times worse. There was also the fact that Sasuke looked just like an Uchiha she once skewered with a sword. A lot of good that turned into B. Kanoko took one last look at her before heading out of the bathroom. She was a genin now and as such, was granted a headband. In her past, she wore a face guard. To her, it was much more practical, but very few genin wore a face guard. She opted to keep the headband and wore it over her forehead. She turned her head to the side, taking a look at her hair. Her dark brown hair had grown even longer, and now reached the middle of her back. However, she still wore it in a bun. Kanoko also now had bangs that reached to her chin and framed both sides of her face. Her eyes have gotten sharper and were starting to light into an orange color. When she was Tobirama, she was born with dark brown eyes that, over time, turned into a flat crimson color. It seemed this trait carried over. Kanoko then took a look at her outfit. She had convinced her mother to allow her less frilly clothes to wear. She had on a pair of dark brown cargo shorts that ended just before her knee. On both thighs were kunai pouches that stored a variety of sealing scrolls, kunai, and explosive tags. On top, she wore a tight black turtleneck shirt. Over the shirt was dark brown, short-sleeved jacket that had the Nara clan crest in green on the back. Also over her shirt was armor plating. It was dark gray and had 3 pieces, the bottom piece hanging a bit below her shirt line. Around her neck was a simple necklace with the Nara clan crest at the end. She wasn't wearing any gloves, but she had dark gray plates on her forearms, sticking a little bit past her elbows. She wore the standard navy blue sandals, even if it bothered her slightly that it didn't match. Last, strapped to her back was a sword. In her past life, she had won many battles and developed a lot of her strategies around her sword. At first she tried sparing without a sword, but soon found she kept grasping air, looking for her sword to use. Becoming tired, she finally relented and asked her father for a sword. A sword meant close combat. Naras don't do close combat. To say her father was hesitant was an understatement. With enough begging, nagging, he finally relented and promised he would get her a sword if he promised to take lessons. Kanoko was not pleased. She had been proficient with a sword before Shikaku's father learned how to walk, and yet he was telling her that she needed lessons? Okay, maybe he didn't know that she was also Senju Tobarama, but Kanoko didn't feel like being rational at the time. By the time Kanoko had graduated from the academy, she had her sword and completed her training, so she was satisfied. Taking one last look at herself, she proceeded to bid her mother and father a farewell before leaving for the academy building, leaving her brother in the dust. Kanoko chuckled to herself lowly with a smirk plastered on her face. Iruka-sensei was standing in the teacher's room, thinking about his class. He didn't like thinking what would be in store for them next. He had done the best he could to get them ready for the world outside, but was it enough? Did he really do a good job? Did he miss something critical that would cost one of them their lives? Suddenly a small smile appeared on his face. He thought about Naruto and the incident that occurred last night. He was so proud of him. Naruto might have not been the best student, but he had the will of fire running through him and worked so hard every day to make his dream come true. At first, when he was chasing after him, he was terrified for Naruto. He honestly didn't think Naruto would be able to protect himself, but at the end of the night, Naruto had protected Iruka. Iruka then thought back to the events earlier that night, when the third Hokage was deciding teams. Flashback. So, Iruka, I would like your thoughts on the group distributions. The Hokage told him flatly with his elbows on the desk and hands clasped in front of his mouth. Iruka stared at the Hokage in shock. Huh? You would like my opinion? Iruka couldn't get over his shock. The Hokage always decided the teams and he had never once asked Iruka. Was it different this time because he was their homeroom teacher? Was that common? The Hokage laughed slightly before saying, "Hi. You see, I had all the teams decided, but then one of your students was selected to receive training for a special tracking unit." Iruka looked up from the list shock and asked, "Who?" The Hokage thought for a second before stating, "Abirame Shino. He has shown great potential, and with the gap in our A and B ranks, our special unit's commander would like to see him trained sooner, rather than later." Iruka was still a little shocked, but when he thought about it, it made some sense to him. Shino was always by the book, worked hard, and showed great promise in his family's jutsus. Though if Iruka thought anyone would be selected for the ANBU track, it would be Uchiha Sasuke. He would suggest Nara Kanoko as well, but knew her father would quickly put a kibosh on it. Those of higher rank, or were close to the Naras, knew that Shikaku's daughter was the apple of his eye. He may not outwardly show it like Yamanaka Inochi, but many had heard the stories about the few that crossed him. Iruka looked back at the team selections in front of him. He put his hand on his chin before saying, "Well, there's one student that would greatly benefit from Kurenai's teachings in Jinjutsu." The Hokage looked up at Iruka curious, so? The Hokage looked at the paper and made a few scribbles on it before holding it up and running his eyes over the names again. "I believe you are right, Iruka. Here, the teams have been decided. I will announce it to the Jounin tonight, but take a copy for your records. It may not be the exact combination I was hoping for, but it has potential." The third Hokage handed the paper over to Iruka. Iruka grabbed it and bowed. "Thank you, Lord Hokage." End flashback. Iruka looked back down at the list. Today was the day his class would be assigned teams. The room was dark with garbage all over the table and floor. The day had long since started, so most were outside their homes, going about their day. Inside this room, however, a discussion was taking place. One of the men in the room picked up a discarded carton of milk. He held it up to his nose and took a sniff. "This is way past its expiration date," the man said, placing it back down on the table. Sitting at the table, facing him, was another man. This one, much older and dressed in red and white robes. "He's a fool, but it would be best if you looked after him," the older man said before continuing, "You have good instincts, Kakashi." Kakashi looked a bit sheepish before answering with, "Sure." The robed man stared at the floor behind Kakashi while saying, "And also." Kakashi sighed, interrupting him before stating, "Hi. I know." The old man sighed as well before getting up and telling Kakashi, "Keep an eye on that one." This time, they weren't talking about Naruto. And with that, the robed man left, leaving Kakashi to his thoughts. "You really caught yourself into the middle of something this time, Kakashi," Kakashi thought, still staring at the ramen cup mess on the table. Kanoko was leaning against the window, watching all of her classmates make their way in. When she saw Ino and Sakura run in panting, she turned her head away. Kanoko had no interest in watching those two compete for the Uchiha. Thankfully, today would be the last day she would have to deal with either of them. Kanoko thought it was a bit sexist that only one kunoichi was on each team. Sure, the 3 kunoichi she knew were a bit boy crazy, but back in her day, the Senju clan was filled with powerful and capable kunoichi. The Senju clan would have never held their own against the Uchiha without them. To see kunoichi degraded in this day and age set Kanoko on edge. Kanoko then turned her gaze to the blonde Shinobi giggling in his seat. "I thought he didn't pass," Kanoko thought. Her brother must have had the same idea because he walked over to Naruto and said, "Naruto, what are you doing here? This only for ninjas that passed graduation." "Do you see this headband? Hush, Shikamaru? I'm a full-fledged ninja. Believe it!" Naruto yelled back at him standing up. Shikamaru just shrugged and walked away. Kanoko just closed her eyes and extended out her senses to take a head count of the room instead. Inuzuka, Akimichi, Yamanka, Haruno, Uchiha, Hyuga, and of course Uzumaki. Where's Aburame? Kanoko opened her eyes to scan the room. She could find him anywhere. That's odd, I was sure he passed. She thought when the class suddenly went silent. She twisted her head to where Naruto was, as it always involves him, and was flabbergasted at what she was witness to. Naruto kissing Sasuke. Didn't see that coming, was all Kanoko thought as Naruto and Sasuke started gagging. Kanoko decided that even though the last 4 years had been long and tenuous, she would miss these moments as she watched Naruto get the snot beaten out of him by the girls. The whole class was now quiet. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, curious whom they would be paired with. Irika-sensei stood at the front of the class, listing off Team 5's members and sensei. Kanoko took a look around the room and started listing off which teams wouldn't make it past the first round. Kanoko was under no illusion that this was the last step in becoming a ninja. She created the academy after all. As Tobirama, she was one of the first ninjas to form a team of upcoming ninjas from different clans, something that was previously unheard of. Kanoko focused back on Irika-sensei, berating herself from getting sidetracked. Hopefully she hasn't missed her assignment. Okay. Team 7 will be Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto's head jerked upwards at the mention of his name. Haruno Sakura. Yeah. No. Naruto and Sakura yelled simultaneously, with Naruto jumping up in joy and Sakura slumping in depression. Ha! Nice job, forehead, Ino said, joining in before snickering some more. Now that's a combination. I feel sorry for the poor soul who is stuck with them. Kanoko's gaze shifted to Sasuke. It'll probably be him. I vaguely remember a practice of sticking the best performer with the worst. Kanoko thought, breathing a sigh of relief. She wasn't too concerned with the team she would be assigned, but she most certainly didn't want to be on Naruto's team. She chuckled a little at how horrible that combination would be for everyone involved. And Nara Kanoko, under Jounin Hatake Kakashi. What? Noko's eyes looked like blank white holes. She turned a pale shade of gray as the atmosphere around her turned dark. Naruto went rigid before slowly turning around with a heated glare. Flames of promise rose in the background before Naruto yelled at Irika-sensei, "What? How come an awesome ninja like me has to be on a team with a loser?" Naruto finished by pointing angrily at Kanoko. Kanoko's face still hadn't changed and her brother was worried she'd had a heart attack. Shikamaru poked her from behind with a pencil. Slowly Kanoko fell sideways, still as rigid as a log, before hitting the ground. When she hit the ground, her soul was seen leaving her body. For this reason, Kanoko didn't hear the explanation given to Naruto about Team 7's selection, or who was on the next 3 teams. She later learned that Hinata, Kiba, and Sasuke were on Team 8 with a jounin named Kurenai, and Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji were on Team 1 with a jounin named Asuma. Kanoko spent the break period before meeting their new senseis in the classroom, recuperating. After everyone filed in, the senseis started showing up. Kanoko waited, curious about her own sensei. She had used Hatake Kakashi's name to manipulate Guy, but never actually sought out the man himself. Kanoko reasoned that she likely already met him through her father's position, but dismissed it as it made no difference now. And again, a ninja didn't make jounin without intelligence, skill, and will. She actually looked forward to having a strict and experienced teacher who took their job seriously. The academy was to encourage loyalty to the village and hope for a better future. It would be a nice change to learn the harsh realities of this new time. Kanoko decided, with a small smirk, that even though she was stuck with Naruto, this was a good thing. Several hours later. How hard is it to be on time? Kanoko thought, snapping the pencil in her hand in half. Her face didn't reveal how she was really feeling, but her patience had just snapped with that pencil. It was so late that even Iruka-sensei abandoned them. If that only wasn't bad enough, Naruto would not shut up. Which got Sakura going, having to correct him every time. She hated them both. No. She hated all 3 of them. Naruto! Stop it! You're going to make sensei mad! Sakura yelled at Naruto from her seat in the classroom. Serves him right. Even Iruka-sensei didn't stick around. Naruto responded, placing the chalk-filled eraser above the door. Sakura huffed and turned around to Kanoko and whined, "Kanoko! Tell Naruto to stop. He's going to get us in trouble." Kanoko didn't even bother to open her eyes, knowing she wouldn't be able to hold her emotions in. She let go of a large breath, to calm herself down, before sternly responding with, "Naruto. You are a ninja now. Act like it." Naruto was about to yell back at Kanoko when the door opened suddenly. Poof! The eraser landed right on top of his silver-haired head. Kanoko and Sakura's sweat dropped while Naruto started laughing loudly. "You fell for it. Haha." Kakashi just stared at them blankly before saying, "My first impression of you all, I hate you." Team 7 just stared blankly back. Don't worry. The feeling is mutual, Kanoko thought before her sensei informed them to meet on the roof. Sitting down on the roof, Kanoko was in the middle with Naruto on her left and Sakura on her right. Kakashi was leaning on the railing behind him before he said, "Okay. Let's start with introductions." Sakura looked back at her sensei and asked, "Introductions? What do you mean?" "Your name, things you like, things you dislike, hobbies, and dreams for the future, stuff like that," Kakashi responded with a bored voice. Naruto stared at Kakashi before asking, "Why don't you tell us about you, so we know how this works?" Kakashi pointed to himself, "Me? I'm Hatake Kakashi. Things I like and things I hate? I don't feel like telling you that." Naruto and Sakura looked up with a confused look. Dreams for the future? Never really thought about it. As for my hobbies? I have lots of hobbies. Kakashi finished. Great, we learned nothing. Sakura complained to Naruto and Kanoko. I have a feeling that's going to be the theme of this apprenticeship. Kanoko muttered lowly back. Naruto responded, whispering, I don't understand. What does that mean? Kanoko sighed lightly before saying, nothing. Okay. Your turn. You on the right, you're first. Kakashi said, folding his arms. Naruto adjusted his headband with a grin before saying, all right. Believe it. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like instant ramen and I really like the ramen Iruka-sensei buys me from Ichiraku's. I hate the 3 minutes it takes to heat up ramen. My hobby is eating different kinds of ramen and comparing them. And my future dream is... Naruto stood up before shouting, to be the greatest Hokage. That way the whole village will stop disrespecting me and start treating me like somebody. Somebody important. He's grown up in a very interesting way. Kakashi thought, gazing at Naruto. Okay. Next. Sakura started grinning and said, "My name is Haruno Sakura." "What I like, I mean who I like." She started shifting around, not looking anyone in the eye. "My hobby is of my dream for the future is," and then she squealed. What is wrong with her? Kanoko thought, staring bewildered at Sakura. And what do you hate? Kakashi asked. Naruto, she responded immediately. Eh? Naruto asked, looking crushed. Kakashi just sighed before thinking, girls her age are more interested in boys than ninjutsu training. Kakashi moved his gaze to Kanoko. Okay, you in the middle. Kanoko stared back at him, not impressed at all. Closing her eyes, she simply said, "My name is Nara Kanoko. You don't really care about what I like, and I dislike disloyalty and tardiness. My hobbies are training, and my dream is to protect the village hidden in the leaves." Well, that was boring. Kakashi thought before talking again. Good. You are each unique with your own ideas. You have your first mission tomorrow. A mission? Oh! Are we going to rescue a princess or fight samurai? Naruto asked, raising his hand in the air. Not quite. This will be a survival mission, Kakashi explained slowly. Survival? I thought we would go on real missions. We did stuff like that in the academy, Sakura asked, unsure. Kakashi simply said, "This is not like your previous training?" What kind of training is it? Naruto asked. Kakashi just started chuckling, until it got louder and louder. Hey, that's a normal question. What's so funny? Sakura asked, a little peeved. If you told you, you wouldn't like the answer, Kakashi simply replied. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 will make genin. In other words, this is a make it or break it, pass, fail test. And the chance that you'll fail is at least 66%. Naruto and Sakura went white. What? That's it. I decide whether you pass or fail, Kakashi added with a grin. Meet me at the designated training grounds at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. And bring your ninja gear. Before running away, Kakashi added one last piece of advice. Oh. And tomorrow you better skip breakfast or you'll puke. And with that he left with a teleportation jutsu. Naruto got up and yelled, "Ugh! This is so unfair." Kanoko dragged herself through the door to her home before searching for her father's chakra signature. When she found it, she moved to sit next to him, glaring at his back. "How can I help you, Kanoko-chan?" Shikaka asked simply without moving from his position at the shogi board. Kanoko huffed slightly before saying, "An early death would be ideal, but I'll settle with an explanation." Shikaku chuckled lowly. "Sorry. Can't help you there. This was the Hokage decision. We learned of it just before you did." Kanoko gave her father a blank look. "Your daughter ends up with the legendary copy Nin as a sensei, and your son's team's sensei is the Hokage's own son, and you had nothing to do with it. Why are you always so mean to your Tusan, Noko-chan?" Shikaka asked with a grin. Kanoko crossed her arms and closed her eyes, muttering under her breath about troublesome fathers. "Haha. Just wait until Shikamaru hears that you said his favorite word," her father stated with a loud and deep laugh. "He will hear no such thing," Kanoko said with a pointed look before smirking, "or I'll show Ka-san what you are hiding in the back of your closet." All the color in Shikaku's face drained. Deal. Kanoko started walking carefully into the training ground at 4 a.m. sharp. She had been to this training field many times, but wanted to set up traps and surveil the land for possible traps left by Kakashi. After all, one of her first lessons to her students was be aware of your surroundings 1% of the time. After she set a few traps and completed her search of the surrounding area, she sat down in front of 3 practice logs and started on some stretches. It was a little before 5 a.m. when Naruto and Sakura showed up, looking like they just rolled out of bed. I will have to teach them to be constantly vigilant, Kanoko thought, gazing at the two of them. Both of them greeted Kanoko with a yawn before sitting down nearby. 6 hours later. Kanoko had taken to a mediating stance, focusing on her chakra and the chakra around her. Naruto and Sakura were leaning against one and another, stuck between awake and asleep. "Yo!" Kakashi greeted as he teleported in front of them. "You're late!" Naruto and Sakura yelled at Kakashi. Kakashi started on some kind of excuse that Naruto and Sakura didn't believe before pulling out an alarm clock. Kakashi walked over and set it down on a stump, before clicking it and saying, "Okay. It's set for noon." Huh? Kakashi then pulled out 2 bells and waved them around. Your job is to get one of these bells from me. He looked over to the stumps. If you can't get them by noon, you will be tied to those poles and you'll watch while I eat my lunch. Two stomachs growled at the announcement. But sensei, there's 3 of us and only 2 bells. Sakura asked sensei, astonished. Kakashi chuckled, that way, at least one of you fails. Kakashi rang the bells before continuing, you can use any weapons, including shuriken. If you're not prepared to kill me, you won't take the bells. Sakura was shocked, but sensei, we could hurt you. Haha. Especially since you couldn't dodge that eraser. Naruto laughed at Kakashi. Kakashi looked at Naruto, saying, class clowns are usually the weakest links. You can safely ignore them. Lowest scores. Losers. Shit! Kakashi is sabotaging us. I have to say something and quick. Kanoko thought. We don't have one of those on Team 7, so why don't you stop gossiping like a cooped-up housewife and start the test already? Kanoko tried to sound extra mean to her sensei to appease Naruto's ego. After all, she was going to need both of them to pull this off. There was no way she would lose to this man, at her own damn test. Holy shit! Kanoko thought in a small amount of panic. Here she was, going from tree to tree, with leaves in her hair, running from her own sensei. He was on a particular kind of warpath, his eyes promising death on impact. Kanoko cursed her luck. She had to have the number 1 knucklehead and the number 1 fangirl on her team. Naruto had run ahead before she could grab him and started fighting Kakashi, in hand-to-hand combat. Kanoko then ran after Sakura, to inform her of the plan Kanoko was forming in her head, but Sakura kept running away from her. By the time Kanoko had caught up, she saw Kakashi form signs of a fire-style jutsu behind Naruto. Kanoko threw several kunai at Kakashi, while running to Naruto to pull him out of the way. Apparently, Kakashi wasn't forming the hand signs for a fire jutsu, but for a jutsu called 1,000 Years of Pain, whatever that was. After saving Naruto's behind, he pushed her off and went for the bell that Kakashi dropped. Kanoko almost laughed out loud at her own misery. This was her teammate. A special kind of idiot, who falls for traps civilian babies wouldn't fall for. But again, Kanoko invented this pathetically simple and obvious test, so she grinded her teeth and went in to help Naruto. After cutting him down and getting shoved again, then waking up Sakura from a genjutsu, also receiving a shove from her what the hell is with her teammates, and shoving her, Kanoko was done. She was done. Kanoko roughly grabbed Sakura by the back of her dress, found Naruto and pulled him up by the collar, and tossed them both on the ground in a safe spot away from Kakashi-sensei. If you both don't sit down and shut up, I swear on my honor as a shinobi of the Leaf Village, I will burn down Ichiraku Ramen and slit Uchiha Sasuke's throat, Kanoko said with force, pulling her sword off of her back as a show of power. Both Naruto and Sakura turned white before they sat down and waited for Kanoko to continue. Kanoko breathed in and out before saying, "This is a test of teamwork. It's so basic, Kiba and Choji could have figured it out in a number of seconds. The only way we are becoming genin is if we can show that we can work together, as a team, to complete our mission." Kanoko Sakura started to say nervously. No interruptions. I've had enough of your childlike behaviors. We are ninjas of the Leaf Village, and you will act as such. Kanoko Naruto started as well, moving his hand to gesture behind her. That doesn't mean you can talk either, Naruto. If you really want to be Hokage, you need to learn how to work with others, and that starts here. Kanoko growled, waving her sword up and down. Kanoko-chan? Said a voice behind her. Kanoko was so lost in her rage at this point. How dare someone interrupt her while she was making a point? Couldn't they see she was busy? She yelled, "Can't you see you're interrupting?" while swinging her sword around to person behind her, cutting an orange book in half. Naruto and Sakura had looks of amazement on their faces, that Kanoko was able to catch Kakashi-sensei off guard like that and land a blow, even if he, physically, wasn't hit. Kanoko just straightened back into a standing position with a frown, berating herself for losing her control on her emotions and forgetting to always remain aware of her surroundings. Kakashi, however, he was staring at the pages floating away in the wind. He couldn't read his book anymore. It was ruined. Forever. Kanoko started to turn around to grab Naruto and Sakura, so they could plan, away from Kakashi, when she felt a sharp spike in negative energy flowing behind her. She quickly jerked back around, while jumping back to where Naruto and Sakura were. It ruined, Kakashi said in a lost, childlike voice. That was the only warning Kanoko got, before a lightning fist flew her way. Which is how she found herself at this moment, running through the woods. Away from her sensei, who was trying to kill her. In the end, Naruto, Sakura, and Kanoko proved they could work as a team. The fear of death was a powerful motivator, and all three of them were officially promoted to genin. But no one on Team 7 ever talked about the events that took place in what was now dubbed as Why Ika Paradise is Off Limits. And Kanoko. She refused to answer any of her mother's questions when she fell, face first, at the front door, hair singed, clothes scorched with kunai holes, shoes full of dirt, and all of her supplies gone. At least now she knew her chakra-stealing seal worked. Kanoko stood tall with her arms crossed, staring down at Naruto and Sakura. Of course, the strong image was ruined by the several bandages on her face. After all, it had only been a day since they officially became genin, but Kanoko wanted to get started right away. Okay. Since we are officially a team, we need to know more about each other's skills. I'll go first. Kanoko ran through a series of hand signs before her shadow started to move. This is the Shadow Possession Jutsu. Shadow manipulation is what the Nara clans base many of their jutsus off of. Kanoko released her rat seal. To be honest, you won't see me use that jutsu unless absolutely necessary. It is very draining to my chakra and only gets weaker the longer I hold a person. Kanoko reached behind her to grab her sword. She swung it out. My kenjutsu skills are strongest of all my assault abilities right now. She took a few different stances with her sword to demonstrate. Putting her sword away, she opened her kunai pouch and pulled out a scroll. She held it out. I also have measurable skills in Fuinjutsu. Sakura, if you need storage or explosive seals, please let me know and I would be willing to provide you such. Sakura just nodded before Naruto jumped up yelling, Hey! How come you'll give Sakura-chan your secret scrolls, but not me? Kanoko's eye twitched before saying, You can make your own scrolls. I only offered them to Sakura because she is on my team and likely doesn't have any Fuinjutsu skills. What is this Fuinjutsu you keep talking about? I don't remember hearing about it in the academy, Naruto said with his eyes narrowed and his arms crossed. Idiot! That's because you skipped class like you always do. Sakura yelled at Naruto. Fuinjutsu is a type of jutsu that seal objects, living beings, chakra, along with a wide variety of other things within another object. Fuinjutsu can also be used to restrict movement, or unseal objects either from within something or someone. Sakura finished, as if she read it straight out of the book. Naruto still looked confused. Kanoko sighed, You really don't know what Fuinjutsu is? What kind of Uzumaki are you? Muttering the last part. Naruto looked mad and was about to yell when Sakura interrupted him. What do you mean, what kind of Uzumaki is he? I don't like where this is going, Kanoko thought before answering. The Uzumaki is a clan known for its proficiency in the art of sealing. They were also known for their vitality, large chakra reserves. Naruto stared at Kanoko in wonder before asking softly, I have a clan? Kanoko shifted nervously before looking away. I'm not sure their village was very far from here and I haven't heard anyone speak of them. Sakura was trying to add up the facts in her head. Then how do you know so much about them? Kanoko didn't look at either of them. I read things. Kanoko said lamely before stating loudly, Naruto. Let's see what you can do. Huh? Naruto asked, being interrupted from his thoughts. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, and I won't even bother asking about your genjutsu skills, Kanoko said flatly. Naruto stood up quickly with a grin before shouting, Haha. I'll show you my great and awesome jutsus. First Shadow Clone Jutsu. And with that, at least 3 Naruto copies popped out of thin air. Kanoko just stared bewildered before walking up to a clone and poking it. It didn't pop. It was solid. Impossible. Kanoko thought before turning back to the real Naruto. Where did you learn this? Kanoko barked out. Naruto giggled before saying, Oh, just somewhere. It was super easy to master too. He finished with a laugh, placing his hands on his hips. Kanoko's eyebrow twitched. Super easy. Why you? It wasn't super easy to create, you bastard. Just show us your next jutsu, idiot, Sakura said, getting impatient. Ah. Sakura-chan, why are you so mean? Naruto said, dispelling the clones and running through a few hand seals. This one is 1% Uzumaki Naruto crafted. Sexy jutsu. Suddenly Naruto transformed into a naked and busted blonde. A tick formed on Sakura's head and she tightened her fist. Kanoko just gave Naruto a bored look. Naruto. And was the only warning Naruto got. Sakura-chan. Naruto whined with tears in his eyes and bruises on his cheeks. Kanoko sighed before crossing her arms again. They're children, Tobirama. Just remember that they are children. Is that all, Naruto? Kanoko asked flatly. Well, I have other super awesome techniques, but they're super secret, so I can't tell you. Naruto said with his eyes closed and his arms crossed. He doesn't know any other techniques, is what he means. Kanoko and Sakura thought at the same time. That just leaves you, Sakura, Kanoko said, turning to Sakura. Sakura stared at Kanoko for a second, and then looked to Naruto, before shifting nervously with a small blush on her face. Well, I know the transformation jutsu, and the clone jutsu and the body replacement jutsu. Silence. Wow, Sakura. You know all those jutsu? That's so cool, Naruto told Sakura, looking sincerely impressed. Kanoko just stared at the both of them in shock. Those are all. Wait, are you saying, Naruto, both of you? That's all they know? Breathe, Tobirama, breathe. Okay, never mind. What about taijutsu and genjutsu? How are you in those subjects? Kanoko asked, trying to recover from her shock. Sakura put a finger on her chin, looking up before answering. Well, I'm not that good at taijutsu and I don't know any genjutsu, but I'm pretty good at identifying when I am in a genjutsu. Sakura finished with a smile. I guess it goes without saying how underprepared clanless ninja are. Kanoko thought, further thinking about the discrepancies between genin from clans, those not from clans, orphans, and those from civilian families. Okay, looks like we have a lot of work ahead of us. I'm going to be frank, we're going to train hard and I'm not letting Kakashi assign us any C-ranked missions until the both of you are efficient in at least 2 defensive jutsus. Kanoko finished with a flat tone and look. What? Who died and made you leader? Naruto yelled, getting in Kanoko's face. Kanoko simply pulled out a lighter, clicking it so fire came out, and said, I'll make good on my promise. Without regret. Ah. No, please don't burn down Ichiraku ramen. What did ramen ever do to you? Naruto yelled, waving his hands. It continues to fuel your existence. That is how it has wronged me, Kanoko said flatly while closing her eyes. Sakura snickered at that while Naruto just cried in the corner. Kanoko pulled out 2 chakra nature squares before looking back up at Naruto and Sakura with a serious face. Naruto. Sakura. Naruto and Sakura looked back to Kanoko with curious expressions. Kanoko took a deep breath and said, It doesn't matter what you do, you may live and die as you like. However, no matter what road you end up taking, remember to protect the people that are precious to you. Kanoko stopped and looked up to the stone faces above the village before continuing. This way of thinking is known as the will of fire. A mission, promise, drive, whatever you want to call it, to protect the village, the place where all those precious to you can live in peace and happiness. It was silent for a moment as the wind picked up and the leaves swirled by. Kanoko was standing in front of the doors leading into the Hokage's office. She had spent the past 12 years telling herself to remain hidden. There were always a number of threats in the ninja world, many of which you could never foresee. In addition, Kanoko had yet to learn all of the changes that took place in her absence, inside and outside the village. The possibilities and dangers were endless, so she reasoned secrecy was her only option. Opening her eyes to gaze at the doors again, she thought back to her new team, Team 7, Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi-sensei. It reminded her of a time before, when she had students of her own. She had asked Naruto and Sakura to trust to her completely, to fight together, defend each other, and support each other in their dreams. And yet, here she is, reluctant to put her trust in her former student, someone she had entrusted the one thing that was most important to her, the village. She tried to convince herself that her being Tobirama, in a small female body, didn't make any impact on the village and as such, the information would just be a burden to her former student. But she had the mind of a former Hokage, that in itself warrants concern. Which lead her down another path, elimination. Kanoko didn't even try to defend herself, in that if she was the Hokage and such a security risk was running around the village, that she wouldn't remove it, permanently. She did like to think that she would reconsider if the individual was Hashirama's reincarnation, but the safety of the village was always her prime concern. Of course, there was the possibility that the Hokage would either laugh, not believing her, or have her sent to TNI for suspicious behavior. Kanoko had more than enough reasons to bury this little secret of hers. But Kanoko had already made up her mind. The Hokage can see you now, a Chunin said, opening the door for Kanoko. Kanoko looked at the Chunin before walking in and stopping a distance from the Hokage's desk. The Hokage looked up from a scroll before saying, "Ah. Nara Kanoko, is it? I was a little surprised to hear that you wanted to speak with me. You just passed your Genin test, correct? And are on Team 7? The Hokage finished with a kind smile. Kanoko kept her expressionless gaze high. I am indeed on Team 7 and am now a Genin. Haha, good. Well then, how can I help you? The Hokage stared curiously at Kanoko. Kanoko took a short look left and right. The Hokage picked up on her concern and said, The Hokage's office is private. You don't have to worry about anyone overhearing things they should not know. Except for the ANBU protecting the Hokage, I'd rather they not listen in either. We'll see if this suffices. Kanoko thought before walking over to the desk and sliding a piece of paper to the Hokage slowly. The Hokage's face dropped into a suspicious frown. Curious though, he grabbed it and opened it up. I once told you, protect those who love the village and those who believe in you. And nurture those to whom you can entrust the next generation. Starting tomorrow, you are the Hokage. The third Hokage looked up at Kanoko sharply before leaning back with a distrustful look. He gazed at the paper again, then at Kanoko. Kanoko neither moved nor changed facial expressions. She simply stood and waited. Hiruzen closed his eyes for a long period of time, debating in his head before he waved his hand, indicating to the hidden shinobi to leave. Opening his eyes again, he said, Why should I trust your words? There were a number of shinobi that could have given you this information. Kanoko, without a moment of pause, responded, Because all the shinobi present were loyal and honorable shinobi of the leaf. None would act in this manner. The Hokage closed his eyes again, thinking, I can think of one, but sensei meant a lot to him. I'm not sure if he would do something like this. Opening his eyes, he said, I will need more information. What jutsu did you use to revive yourself? And why are you hiding as a child, a girl at that? Why now? Why not all those years ago instead of naming me as Hokage? Hiruzen had more questions, but settled on those for the moment. Kanoko stared back at her formed student. I did not use a jutsu to revive myself. How I came to be is a mystery, which I myself have yet to learn. I suspect an outside influence, but again, to what end? How does my presence, limited as it is now, advance another's goal? Your questions are well asked, but I do not have answers you seek. And Hiruzen, if you think time has weakened my memory of you, dismiss that thought. What is your real question? Ignore the Kanoko's question. The third Hokage looked back at the girl with a hard look. You leave me in a difficult position. You say you are Senju Tobarama, the second Hokage, my sensei, but all you have to show is a piece of paper with a quote that may have not even been written by you. The Hokage crossed his arms, already coming to a decision. You're right. Kanoko said before following with, I have given you an impossible truth with no collaborating facts. Honestly, the whole idea could be something I made up in my head and forced myself to believe. The third Hokage narrowed his eyes and opened his mouth, but Kanoko interrupted him. That being said, there's one way to prove myself to you. I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but it appears I have no choice. Kanoko sighed before taking a deep breath and releasing it. She looked Hiruzen straight in the eyes as the third Hokage had his full attention on Kanoko. I was starting to train you in the art of sealing, as your clan had a contract with the monkey tribe and you wanted to know more. After sending Koharu and Hamura off on another task, I took you to the land of whirlpools. There, I taught you about different seals and introduced you to some of the Uzumaki clansmen. Hiruzen nodded, as he recognized the time, but still was not convinced that another couldn't have told Naoko to say this, as many of the facts given were vague. And after dropping you off to train, I ventured to the edge of the village. You started having difficulty with the mechanics of the seal, so you left to find me. It took a bit, but you eventually found me. Kanoko cleared her throat with a fist in front of her mouth. A small blush grew on her cheeks, and Iahem was partaking in an accident ritual of appreciating the Uzumaki's clan's water activities. Kanoko was as red as a tomato. Hiruzen was speechless. His eyes blank circles. The third Hokage gazed away for a second, thinking of the memory before his nose started to bleed. Quickly, he composed himself with a cough. Okay. Say I believe you. The third Hokage's face went serious again. What are your intentions? Kanoko's face went back to a stoic expression. Shikamaru laid outside in the grass with his hands behind his head, gazing up at the orange sky. His team had practiced their jutsu with each other earlier in the day, and he had been relaxing on his hill ever since. Choji, who normally joined him, had to be home early tonight. So here Shikamaru lay, alone on his hill, watching the clouds go by. So I'm a genin now, huh? Such a drag, he thought. He watched his sister train day and night, and wonder if that was what was in store for him. He didn't like that thought. It sounded troublesome. She's changed a lot. Or maybe not at all. Humph, I can never get a read on her. Other girls are simple, scary, but predictable. They're always trying to improve themselves for some love interest. What's the point? Shikamaru turned to the side to grab at some grass. But Kanoko? She never looked twice at a guy she wasn't assessing for weaknesses. She never shows any emotion. Maybe irritation and on rare occasion anger, but happiness? Or love? I didn't even think she cared about her own family. She never shows it. Shikamaru thought back to the hibachi incident. Outside of that moment, Shikamaru shifted back onto his back and closed his eyes. She's so troublesome. It wasn't long before he fell sound asleep, tired from the long and active day. The blades of grass shifted as Kanoko walked up to her sleeping brother. Normally, she would wake him up to walk home on his own, but she was feeling vulnerable today. She would never admit it out loud, but Shikamaru had warmed his way into her heart. She was truly beginning to see him as a brother, someone to hold and protect. She reasoned that she had felt this way from the first time he held onto her as an infant, trusting her to keep him safe as he slept. With a small, soft smile, Kanoko placed Shikamaru onto her back and started walking home slowly, as to not wake him up. She stopped at the top of the hill and gazed down at the village. It's time I grow up. I have to accept that I'm no longer just Senju Tobarama. I'm Nara Kanoko too. I now have people that are precious to me, no matter how much I resisted in the beginning. Images appear of a kitchen with Yoshino waving her wooden spoon at Shikaku, his hands in the air as a sign of peace. Of Shikamaru, with his hands behind his head, laying in the grass with Choji munching beside him with a smile on his face. Of Naruto and Sakura, helping dig Kanoko out of the ground, with bruises on their face, laughing at Kanoko's predicament. Of Kakashi, as he gazed at the Kia stone, teaching them about the importance of friendship, that ninjas who abandon their friends are worse than scum. And of her brother, Hashirama, sharing with her his dream, and his love for the village. I have to find the will to become stronger, braver, wiser, kinder, to protect those precious to me, who love the village and who believe in me. An outline of a girl with a boy on her back, the orange sun setting in the background, was all that was visible, as she walked away, into the distance. Click OK. Are you in position? Click Sakura here. I'm at point C. Click Kanoko, point B. Click Uzumaki Naruto, at position A. Believe it! Click Go Slow Naruto. Kanoko was crouching behind a tree, her chakra reaching out to identify the target. Click OK, Squad 7. Kanoko felt the target take off at an exceptional rate towards Naruto. Click Target has moved. Kanoko barked out over the radio. Click Follow it, Kakashi-sensei commanded. Kanoko, Sakura, and Naruto all took off in pursuit. The target stopped in a small clearing, while Kanoko and her team stayed hidden behind trees nearby. Click What's its position? Click 5 meters. I'm ready. Just give me the signal, Naruto whispered over the radio, excited. Click OK now. Naruto and Sakura leaped to control the target, while Kanoko watched from a safe distance. Humph, the manner in which Shikamaru whined about this cat, you'd think it came straight from the depths of hell. I'll let Naruto handle this one. And just as explained to her by her brother, once Naruto latched on, the cat proceeded to claw his face out. Naruto screamed, I hate cats. Hee! Stupid cat. It deserves to get squashed. Naruto cheered watching the infamous cat, Tora, get roughly hugged by her owner. Once Tora and her owner left, the Hokage looked at the scrolls in front of him. Congratulations on your mission. Now let's see. The Hokage started listing off several D-ranked missions. Kakashi stood behind his students, looking bored out of his mind. Sakura was slightly pouting over not being taken seriously, but wasn't going to complain in front of the Hokage. Kanoko just gazed ahead with no expression, understanding the importance of completing D-rank missions at this point in time. Naruto, however. No more. I'm done babysitting, he said with his forearms forming an X. Iruka, upset with Naruto's rudeness to the Hokage, yelled at him about knowing his place as a genin. After Kakashi whacked Naruto, To prevent him from further embarrassing Kakashi-sensei in front of the Hokage started explaining the ninja ranking system. Of course, none of them were listening. And so I had this Taigatsu ramen today, Naruto told his team, completely ignoring the Hokage. Silence! The Hokage shouted to the group. Kakashi looked back at the Hokage with a sheepish look, before scratching the back of his head. Oh, sorry. Naruto swung back around to face the third Hokage before yelling, "Stop treating me like you're my grandpa. I'm not some brat anymore. I'm a real ninja now, and I want to go on real ninja missions." With that, Naruto turned his head upward and crossed his arms. Kakashi shook his head thinking, "I'm going to hear about this later." The third Hokage just started chuckling, before it turned into a full deep laugh. He leaned back for a second, then gazed over at Kanoko. "I don't like that look," Kanoko though, narrowing her eyes. "Naruto wants us to know that he's no longer a brat. He's a former brat. And he wants a mission. So be it." Naruto looked up a bit shocked before smiling. "Huh?" The Hokage continued, "Since you are so determined, I'll give you a C-ranked mission. You'll be bodyguards on a journey." Kanoko's eyes grew a little at that announcement. The old fool. What does he think he's doing? Team 7 isn't ready for a mission like this. Naruto's face kept getting brighter. "Really?" "Yes." Who? Is it a princess? Or an important councilman?" The Hokage smirked. "Don't be so impatient. Let our visitor in now, please." Kanoko glared at the door, not at all interested in what was about to walk through. Once the doors opened, an older man walked in, holding a large jar of what smelled like sake. "What the? A bunch of little snot-nosed brats?" He then proceeded to take a large swig of his drink before finishing. "And you, the little one with the idiotic look on your face. You really think you're going to expect me to think that you're a ninja?" Naruto laughed and asked, "Who's the little of with the idio?" Naruto stopped when Kanoko and Sakura moved closer to demonstrate. Sakura stood at 4 feet and 11 inches and Kanoko measured at 5 feet even. Naruto finished at a sorry 4 feet and 9 inches. "Why you? I'm going to demolish you!" Naruto yelled, starting to make a run for him, only to be grabbed by Kakashi-sensei. "You can't harm the client, Naruto." The man looked serious as he told Team 7, "My name is Tazuna, a master bridge builder, and I must return to my country. I am building a bridge there that will change our world. And I expect you to get me there safely, even if it costs you your life." Kanoko walked through her bedroom door to pack for the trip to the land of waves, starting tomorrow morning. She started counting her explosive tags when her brother walked in and flopped on the bed, face first, next to her. Having become used to her brother's behavior, Kanoko didn't look up from her task. Her brother shifted until he was sitting up, at which point he gazed over her shoulder and asked, "Are you planning on blowing your team out of the training grounds tomorrow?" Shikamaru had an eyebrow raised at the amount of tags in front of her. Kanoko didn't turn to her brother, and just simply answered, "No. Team 7 has its first C-ranked mission tomorrow in the Land of Waves." Shikamaru looked at his sister with a small upturned frown in his eyebrows. "A C-rank mission so soon? Does Toussaint know?" Kanoko shrugged, "I doubt it. It was a last-minute decision by the Hokage." Shikamaru was even more confused. "Huh? Why would he do that?" Kanoko just looked at her brother with zero emotion. "Naruto." "Ah." Shikamaru laid down again on his side. It was silent again before he asked, "When are you leaving?" "Tomorrow morning." "How long will you be gone?" 2 weeks. Maybe more." The room was quiet again. Shikamaru had his eyes closed, trying to take a small nap before his mother started yelling at him about chores, but couldn't get asleep. "Did you pack your kunai?" he asked, sitting up suddenly and looking into his sister's pack. Kanoko stared back at him with an unimpressed look. "Hi. Of course." Shikamaru's face turned slightly red before he jerked his head away, mumbling, "Troublesome, I was just asking a question." Shikamaru turned his face back around when he felt a hand on his shoulder. His sister was staring at him straight in the eyes. "Oniai-san. It's just a C-rank mission. I'm not so weak to be bested so easily." Shikamaru looked away, not really trusting her judgment. Kanoko sighed internally before continuing, "I'm going to be okay. I promise." Kanoko then smiled slightly, although it looked more like a smirk. "I don't have a choice, otherwise, who is going to make sure that your slacking doesn't get you killed one day?" Shikamaru blushed again, but this time was irritated at his sister for embarrassing him. As if he needed a girl to protect him. Shikamaru laid back down, not really feeling better about his sister's mission, but trusting her, a little. Troublesome girl. Just don't get killed. All your chores would fall to me and that would be a major drag. After that, he fell asleep. Kanoko shook her head with a smirk before continuing to pack for the journey ahead. If she was being honest, she didn't have a good feeling about this mission. Yahaha! Naruto shouted jump into the air, once he stepped outside the village gates. Sakura clasped her hands on her backpack straps, asking in an annoyed tone, "What's your problem, Naruto?" Naruto snickered before explaining how this was the first time out of the village. Kanoko wasn't too surprised to hear that. The only time she had been out of the village, in this body, was with her father. It made sense that if Naruto didn't know anyone with business taking them outside the village that he wouldn't venture past the walls. This is really the brat that is going to protect me. Great. Here's to living a short life. Tazuna scoffed before taking another swig of his booze. Naruto, of course, was offended and went for Tazuna again. Hey. I'll let you know that I'm going to be Hokage one day. So you should feel honored to be protected by the great Uzumaki Naruto. Tazuna raised an eyebrow. You? Hokage? I'd sooner sprout wings. Naruto growled, I'm going to be Hokage one day and then everyone will have to treat me with respect. Believe it. Trying to appease the client, Kakashi-sensei said, I'm a jounin, and I can assure you that we are more than adequate to protect you. Tazuna just humphed before walking towards the land of waves. Blip. Kanoko's attention was suddenly diverted when she felt 2 chakra signatures. Team 7 was still just outside the gates, so Kanoko wondered if they were returning ninjas. Only problem, they stopped moving, right where Team 7 was positioned. After a few miles, Sakura asked about the land of waves and if they had any ninja. Kanoko listened loosely to the conversation. She was very interested in how the lands have changed and who the major powers were, but was also on high alert. The chakra signatures from earlier were following them. Kanoko knew that these ninja weren't as clever in their stealth tactics as they believed, so either Kakashi knew about them and had a plan, or he didn't. In which case, he was useless and this all relied on Kanoko now. She honestly didn't believe the latter was true, but the concept of taking chances or letting one's guard down had long since left her. Of course, when Kakashi reassured Sakura that there would be no ninja fights on a C-ranked mission, she nearly scoffed. She berated her sensei in her head for filling his students with both nonsense and false hope. Just as Team 7 and Tazuna passed a puddle, which was obviously the ninjas' henge, they sprang out for a surprise attack. Naruto, Sakura, and Kanoko all turned around as they watched, in horror, Kakashi-sensei get caught in their ninja's chain, and ripped to pieces. That idiot! Kanoko thought, activating her chakra-draining seal. She saw them fly over and run straight for Naruto. Kanoko quickly ran through a series of hand signs. Body replacement jutsu. Standing in her spot was Naruto, and in his was Kanoko. The dual ninjas reached out for her, on either side, with the chain they shared following in between. Kanoko drew her sword and ducked left, underneath the chain. Water style, water blade. She shouted and brought the sword, covered in raging waves, down on the enemy ninja, slicing off his arm. Grabbing the detached arm, she pulled it towards her roughly, bringing the other ninja, attached by the chain, to her. Kanoko formed a tiger seal, water style, liquid bullet. She yelled, a ball of water shot from her mouth towards the ninja she pulled her way. The ninja detached the chain, evading the hit, and both teleported to the other side of the clearing. They each took a stance, and then charged separately, one heading for Naruto and the other Tazuna. Sakura took a defensive stance in front of Tazuna. Do something, Sakura. You have to do something. Sakura thought, berated herself while holding a kunai in front of her before yelling, stay behind me. To Tazuna. Damn it! Kanoko hadn't been able to steal any of their chakra, and she used too much with that water-style jutsu. Kanoko quickly got down on her knee and formed bird, boar, dog, dragon, ox, tiger, serpent, rat, horse, monkey, hare, ram. Shadow possession jutsu. Kanoko spit her shadow, extending it to the enemy ninjas. It didn't make contact, because they were both being held in the air by none other than Kakashi-sensei. Naruto and Sakura both looked up to Kakashi-sensei with joyful looks. Yo! Was Kakashi's response. Are you kidding me? I bust my ass keeping my team and clients safe, and this Rut comes in and saves the day and now he's the hero? Show off. Kanoko thought, her blood boiling. Naruto, from his place on the ground, looked over to where Kakashi died and saw wood pieces. Kakashi-sensei used the replacement jutsu. Kakashi started to walk toward Tazuna and Sakura, before turning his head back and telling Naruto, "Naruto, sorry I didn't help you right away. I didn't mean for you to get hurt." Kakashi paused before adding, "I just didn't think you'd freeze up like that." Naruto looked down at his injured hand, mad at himself for getting scared. Kanoko got up on her feet and quickly made her to Naruto, but not before meeting Kakashi-sensei's eye and shooting him a nasty look. Kakashi's sweat dropped before saying, "Good job, Kanoko and Sakura." Sakura started to smile, but when she looked over at Kanoko and saw her disgusted look, she frowned, not wanting to upset Kanoko. Kanoko grabbed Naruto's hand, taking a look at it closely. Naruto wasn't paying attention though. He was beating himself up internally for being useless. Kakashi-sensei then turned to Tazuna, questioning him, "I wanted to see who the ninja were targeting. I thought it was one of us, but funny enough, it was you, Tazuna." Tazuna looked scared and started to shake before he fell to his knees. "You have to understand. This bridge means a lot to my country. We are currently being starved, beaten and murdered by a man named Gato. He has taken over all of the docks and ships, so no one can leave either. We need this bridge to survive." Tazuna was in tears at this point. Naruto listened closely to Tazuna, completely buying into the story. "Well, based on the facts, this mission is easily a B rank and could turn into an A rank. And lying to us means that we are now beyond the scope of our mission," Kakashi-sensei finished. Sakura looked back to Kakashi and said, "We're genin, this is too much for us. We have to go back." Kanoko nodded, agree with Sakura, "We also need to take Naruto back to the village. It's likely his wound has been poisoned and none of us have the expertise to remove poisons." Kakashi looked back at Naruto and lazily said, "I guess you're right. Naruto's hand will likely pose a problem. I guess we have to go back because of Naruto." "That little shit. He did that purposely. There's no way Naruto is going to back down now," Kanoko thought, getting angrier at her sensei. Naruto ripped his hand from Kanoko's, surprising her, and bring a kunai down onto it, causing blood to go everywhere. "Why am I so different? Why am I always AHH?" Naruto said, gritting his teeth in pain. "Naruto!" Sakura chastised him. Naruto didn't move, just held his hand and continued, "I worked too hard to get here. Pushing myself. Training alone for hours. Anything to get stronger to reach my dream. I will never back down and let someone else rescue me. I will never run away and I will not lose to Sasuke or Kanoko. Upon this wound I make this pledge. Believe it." Still not turning around, Naruto says, "Bridge builder, I will complete this mission and protect you with this kunai knife." With that, Naruto turns around, kunai still in his hand, impacted in his other, and grins painfully, "Don't worry. I'll be fine." Sakura and Tazuna just stared at Naruto in shock and awe. Kakashi had a small smile hidden underneath his mask. Kanoko just stared at Naruto. One part of her was irritated with Naruto's reckless behavior. The other part of her, however, he reminded her of someone she used to know. Kanoko closed her eyes and smirked. "After a speech like that, I guess we have no choice." Team 7 was currently relaxing on a boat, drifting across the water in the thick mist. Naruto was jumping around and talking loudly, which earned him a punch from Sakura. "Sakura-chan," Naruto whined, holding his bruised head. Sakura stopped glaring at Naruto and turned to Kanoko, who was relaxing with her arms crossed. Kanoko opened one eye to gaze at Sakura and asked, "Yes?" "Well, I noticed that markings appeared on your arm just after those ninja attacked, but now they're gone again," Sakura asked while pointing at Kanoko's left arm. Kakashi-sensei and Naruto were also curious and were watching Kanoko for an answer. Kanoko moved her gaze to Tazuna and then the boat owner, and shrugged, "I'll tell you later." Naruto's face contorted into a pout, whining loudly, Why? Sakura shushed him before Kakashi-sensei said, "Ninja arts are meant to be secret from outsiders. Kanoko doesn't want to reveal information that can be used against her in the presence of those she does not trust. It's smart. You should learn from Kanoko, Naruto." Naruto just glared daggers at Kanoko, thinking, "Yeah, right. I'm going to be 10 times better than Kanoko. Believe it." After pulling up to shore, the gang walked through a tree-covered area, making their way to Tazuna's home. Naruto, eager to prove himself, was running around throwing kunai at every noise he heard. It was scaring Tazuna and Sakura, and frying Kanoko's nerves, frantically searching for threats each time Naruto jumped at a noise. After nearly killing a poor snow bunny, Sakura whacked Naruto on the head and started yelling at him. It's like being quiet is some kind of mystical concept to them. Kanoko thought, annoyed, before she felt a sharp spike in the surrounding chakra. Everyone! Get down, Kakashi shouted. A giant sword flew through the air and hit a tree. Teleporting onto of this sword was a ninja. A ninja of the village hidden in the mist. This is it. My chance to shine. I'm not going to lose out to Kanoko, Naruto thought, looking back at Kanoko, who had her gaze fixated on the ninja above. Well, well, well. If it isn't Momochi Zabuza, Rouge Ninja from the village hidden in the mist, Kakashi said calmly, walking up to Zabuza. Rouge Ninja? Whatever. Nothing's going to stop me, Naruto thought before running towards Zabuza. Idiot, he's going to get himself killed, Kanoko thought, getting her sword out. Kakashi-sensei stuck his arm out, blocking Naruto from going further. Get back. You're in the way. What, but dash? Naruto started. He's not like those other ninja. He is in a whole nother league. Kakashi stopped before continuing. If he's our opponent, I'm going to need this. Kakashi pulled up his headband and opened his eye. The Sharingan. Kanoko thought, eyes narrowing. What is that? Sakura asked. Kanoko looked at Sakura, surprised she didn't know, seeing as Sakura's longtime crush was an Uchiha. Deciding to answer, she said, it's the Sharingan. A dojutsu Kekkai Genkai of the Uchiha clan. Not all members possess it, however. But I was unaware non-Uchiha members could use it as well, but I suppose that is why they call him the copycat ninja. Naruto and Sakura looked at Kakashi-sensei in wonder. Uchiha? As in Sasuke Uchiha? Naruto and Sakura thought. Suddenly Zabuza drawled out, Kakashi of the Sharingan, huh? Well, it's too bad. I'm going to have to kill the old man. A thick mist came over the area quickly. Kanoko, Sakura, and Naruto took protective positions around Tazuna. So I'll have to eliminate you first, Kakashi? Heh, so be it. With that, Zabuza teleported onto the water and started a jutsu, causing more mist to fill the area. Then he vanished. Kanoko crouched down from her defensive stance to touch the ground with her pointer and middle finger. She pushed her senses out, attempting to locate the enemy. Where is he? Naruto cried out. Kakashi walked in front of Team 7, with his back to Kanoko, and said, he'll come for me first. Don't worry. But who is he? Sakura asked. Zabuza of the Hidden Mist Village, the ex-leader of the village's assassination unit. He is a master of the silent killing technique. As silent? Naruto stuttered. Kakashi continued, it's so fast you pass from this life without realizing it. The Sharingan can't fully neutralize it, so don't lower your guard. As an added bonus, Kakashi-sensei says, well, if we fail, we only lose out lives. How can you say that? Sakura snaps at Kakashi-sensei. The mist gets thicker again. Sakura yells, Sensei, as the mist causes Kakashi's image to disappear. Oh, look at this. He abandoned us again. Kanoko thought, not impressed. She could still feel him nearby, but the emotional turmoil, which he seems to enjoy putting Naruto and Sakura through, is getting old. 8 points. Is what Team 7 hears from the mist. Sakura gasps as he continues, listing all areas of the body that, if hit, would be fatal. Which will be my kill point? More silence follows until Kakashi moves the mist away from him and Team 7, but at that moment, the killing aura magnifies. Kanoko looks to Naruto, barely a reaction. Then to Sakura. She's shaking, but holding up. Kanoko is shocked and impressed by them both. The clash of two powerful jounin is nothing to casually ignore. The killing aura alone should have them both paralyzed, but they're handling it better than she thought. Kakashi, wanting to calm his students, says, I'll protect you. I won't allow my comrades to die. Naruto and Sakura calm at this news. I wouldn't be so sure. He's coming from the left, Kanoko thought, quickly taking a defensive stance with her sword, awaiting the blow. It's over. Before Zabuza and Kanoko's swords clashed, Kakashi-sensei rammed a kunai into his stomach. But instead of blood, there's water pouring out. Sensei! Naruto screams, seeing a clone appear behind Kakashi-sensei. Die! Zabuza yells, ripping his sword through Kakashi. Naruto and Sakura are shocked, But Kanoko quickly appeases them, don't worry. Sensei's alive. Just then, his body turns into water, indicating that Kakashi copied Zabuza's water clone jutsu. Kakashi then appeared behind him, with a kunai to his throat. Now it's over, Kakashi said simply. Alright. Naruto cheered and even Sakura laughed in joy. Zabuza chuckled, I won't be defeated by a copycat. Because I'm not that easy to fool. Suddenly, Zabuza turned into water and was behind Kakashi. Kakashi and Zabuza traded a few blows before getting kicked in the air and into the water. Zabuza followed Kakashi into the water. I can't believe Kakashi-sensei got kicked through the air like that, Sakura thought, shocked and worried. Sensei, that's not normal water. Get out of there, Kanoko shouted roughly to her sensei. Kakashi looked up at Kanoko, but it was too late. Ha! Fool! Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi and ran through a series of hand signs, water style, water prison jutsu. No! Kakashi thought too late. Zabuza chuckled, this prison is made of water, but is stronger than steel. Ha! So much for the great Kakashi. I'll finish you off later. Zabuza turned his head to Naruto, Sakura, and Kanoko. I'll have to take care of your little friends first. Zabuza made a water clone. Zabuza's clone turned to them and said, when you've hovered between life and death so many times that it doesn't faze you, you may be called a ninja. When you've become so deadly that your profile has been entered into my bingo book, then you may have earned the title ninja. He started to disappear again, but not before finishing, to call upstarts like you ninja is a joke. He disappeared again. Naruto thought in a panic. He's going for Naruto. Kanoko threw a kunai in Zabuza's direction, but Zabuza was still able to kick Naruto, sending him back, his headband failing off of his head. Naruto! Sakura yelled concerned. As Zabuza landed, he stomped his foot down on Naruto's headband. Kakashi growled before yelling, listen! Get the bridge builder and get out of here! You can't win this fight. He can only fight with his clone, but it can't go too far from his body. Run! Kanoko gritted her teeth, that will only protect us for so long. And I can sense another ninja not too far from here. It's safe to assume that this other ninja, and Zabuza, are comrades. Kanoko looked at Naruto and Sakura, both were shaking. Taking a deep breath, Kanoko told her teammates, our only option is to rescue Kakashi-sensei. Don't be reckless, fall back on your training, and don't panic. Kanoko looked at both of them, I believe in you. Do you believe in me? Naruto and Sakura looked at Kanoko. They took a breath and calmed down slightly, before grinning with confidence. Naruto laughed and asked, what's the plan? Kanoko smirked at Naruto, there's only one person with the right amount of spunk and is unpredictable enough to face this enemy. And that is you, Naruto. Kanoko looked to Sakura for approval. Sakura nodded with a grin. So what's the plan, Uzumaki? Kanoko asked Naruto. Naruto's face got even brighter, before running straight for Zabuza. Sakura's jaw dropped, and she put her hands on her head. Ah! Naruto! What are you doing? After Naruto got kicked by Zabuza and flew back to where Kanoko and Sakura stood. Both could see what was now in Naruto's hand, his Leaf Village headband. That reckless little sigh, Kanoko thought, with a small grin. Naruto's grin grew before saying, okay guys. Let's go wild. Before they could begin, they were interrupted by Tazuna, forget about me. Do what you have to do. Don't hold back. Go ahead and fight to save your sensei. Old man Naruto said quietly, looking back at him. He's really died for ninjas he barely knows, Kanoko thought. Zabuza started to chuckle before barking out several laughs. When Naruto asked him what was so funny, he started to explain his village's genin selection ritual. Or at least, the ritual until one child, not even at genin age yet, massacred the whole class. And it felt so good. Zabuza finished, charging towards Kanoko. Kanoko jumped backwards, evading Zabuza's movements and attacks. You're pretty good. You were about to block my attack earlier too, you must be a sensor. I pretty good one, if you're able to identify me from the chakra-infused mist surrounding us. Kanoko didn't respond. She simply led him over to Naruto. Stop right there. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto shouted, bringing forth 3 clones, all surrounding Zabuza. All of them raced to attack Zabuza, but were pushed back and popped by Zabuza's sword. He's too powerful, Tazuna yelled in fear. Kanoko, with her arms crossed, watching the fight, simply said, "Don't worry. You trust us, right?" Tazuna just gaped at Kanoko before nodding slightly. "I still have this," Naruto yelled as he flew through the air, reaching in his backpack. "Kanoko!" Naruto yelled, throwing a large shuriken at Kanoko. Kanoko jumped up and grabbed it. "Demon Wind Shuriken, Windmill of Shadows!" Kanoko shouted before jumping in the air and throwing it at Zabuza. The real one. It flew past the clone and went for the real Zabuza. Unfortunately, Zabuza grabbed it, but not before a second one flew his way. A second one? Zabuza thought. The second shuriken's on target, and he can't catch this one, Sakura thought. Zabuza jumped over the shuriken. "I told you a shuriken wouldn't touch me," Zabuza barked out. Kanoko smirked. Poof. In the shuriken's place was Naruto. He had hinged as the shuriken. "Take this," Naruto yelled as he threw his kunai at Zabuza. "What?" Zabuza thought, ready to pull away. "Yes," Sakura cheered, and even Kanoko had a smirk on her face. Splash. The water clone, from before, jumped in front of Zabuza, taking the hit. "No!" Kakashi thought, panicking for his students. "What?" Sakura yelled. "Damn it!" Naruto screamed, falling into the water. Zabuza chuckled, then laughed. "You forgot about my clone. Your mistake." Zabuza started running through seals with his free hand. Kakashi struggled in his cage before yelling, "Naruto! Get out of there!" "I'm so sorry, sensei. I'm sorry, I couldn't protect your son," Kakashi thought, pain running through his gut. "Naruto!" Sakura screamed. "Haha! You're finished," Zabuza crackled. Naruto closed his eyes, waiting for the impact. But it never came. Just as Zabuza was forming his last seal, his hands stopped moving. Actually, his whole body stopped moving. "Shadow Possession Jutsu, complete," Kanoko said with a slight smirk on her face. "Impossible," Zabuza thought, still unable to move. In the water, Naruto was laughing. "Haha! We got you! You totally fell for it." Without further pause, Kanoko sidestepped, making Zabuza lose the hold he had on the water prison jutsu. Kakashi-sensei was now free to wreak havoc. And boy did he look pissed. "You know, you're a special kind of jounin." Kakashi stirred slowly in the makeshift bed. Opening his eye, he looked to his surroundings. He was in a room, huh? He didn't remember getting here. "I guess I overdid it with the Sharingan," Kakashi thought, trying to sit up, but falling back down instead. Then he remembered. He woke up to someone talking to him. He turned his head again and saw one of his students leaning against the wall, Kanoko. "What?" Kakashi asked. Kanoko kept her eyes closed before saying, "I said you're a special kind of jounin." A warm feeling grew in Kakashi, believing his student was paying him a compliment. It certainly takes a special kind of stupid to allow your student to get poisoned, get trapped in a cage made of water, have to rely on your students to bail you out, and then later pass out due to chakra exhaustion while the threat has yet to be neutralized. And that's all in the first week of being a jounin instructor. Kanoko finished in a flat, uncaring tone, and arms crossed. Kakashi felt like he just received several kunai to his back. So hurtful, Kakashi thought. Then he jerked up. Last he remembered, he had faced Zabuza in a battle of water jutsu. After nearly finishing him, a Mist Anbu Hunter Nin attacked Zabuza, finishing him off. Kakashi even remembered checking his pulse. What did Kanoko mean by, "the threat has yet to be neutralized"? Kanoko opened her eyes to stare at Kakashi, the Hunter Nin. He watched the entire fight from the shadows. If his real interest was Zabuza's death, he would have intervened when the odds of us winning were at its lowest, when you were caged. Kakashi looked at Kanoko with narrowed eyes. "How come you didn't tell me there were other threats in the area?" Kanoko shrugged, thinking, "I was a little busy cleaning up your mess." Brat. Kakashi thought, deciding against further arguing with his student. It was pointless anyways, and there were bigger concerns. At this moment, Naruto and Sakura came in. "Sensei! You're awake!" Naruto spoke loudly. After sitting down, Kakashi-sensei explained to them and Tazuna's family about Zabuza's likely survival. Naruto, of course, was happy by this news, as only he would, because it meant he had another chance to take Zabuza down. Sensei, you said that we need to prepare quickly, but how are we going to do that, when you can barely move? Sakura asked, concerned. Kakashi's eye turned into a smile and said, well, I can still train you. Sakura jumped up and yelled, hold on. A little last-minute training is not going to help us last against someone like Zabuza. We have to be reasonable about this. It's like only the women are sane ones in this time frame, well, except for Yoshino, that's always debatable. Kanoko thought, a small smile forming on her face, thinking about her family. I wonder what they're doing right now, Kanoko thought, gazing out the window, ignoring her team's ramblings. What a drag, Shikamaru said, walking down Konoha's streets, looking for a certain building. I wouldn't worry so much, munch Shikamaru. It's just a C-ranked mission, Choji said, walking next to his best friend, munching on some chips. Shikamaru turned his head to Choji and gave him a blank look before saying, Sai, it's just troublesome, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, buddy. If you want to talk, I'm here for you, Choji told his friend. Thanks, Choji, Shikamaru said with sincerity. Arriving at the Hokage's tower, Shikamaru waved bye to Choji before walking in and making his way for his father's office. After talking to the Chunin at the front, he was escorted to where his father was. Shikamaru, what are you doing here? Shikaka asked, dismissing a shinobi he was speaking with. Shikamaru extended his arm out, holding a box wrapped in a green cloth. You left your lunch at home. Again. Ka-san threatened me to bring it to you. Shikamaru explained in a bored tone. Scratching his head, he laughed. I suppose I did forget it. Bad habit, I suppose. Shikaka grabbed the bento box from his son and placed it on his desk. He looked at it for a moment, still scratching the back of his head. Shikamaru made a move to leave when he heard his father say, You know your sister brought me my lunch every day. Said something about how it's improper to allow your stomach to growl when meeting and discussing important village decisions, or something like that. Shikaka looked at his son and chuckled, Your sister is something else, isn't she? Shikamaru stared at his father with a bland look before shrugging. Barking out a deep laugh, Shikaka told his son, Did you know she once told the Hokage that he was an idiot for not hiring a secretary or 5 to handle all of his paperwork? The Hokage was in shock. If it was because some 8-year-old had the guts to insult him, or because he effectively wasted the last several years of his life to paperwork he didn't even need to do, I don't know. Shikaka looked back to his desk before continuing, but his face was priceless. He let out a few more chuckles before he walked over to Shikamaru and placed a hand on his shoulder. That's why I know she'll come home safe and sound. She's clever and is always thinking in practicalities. The world may be still black and white to her, but somehow, that makes her even more invulnerable. I'm not always sure how she does it, but she always manages. Shikaka smiled warmly at his son before turning back to his desk and grabbing some paperwork. A last wave to Shikamaru, Shikaka said, Have faith in her promise to you. Shikamaru just walked out, not responding to his father, just shrugging and walking away. Shikaka smirked as he opened his lunch. That boy, both him and his sister, they're going to be a rather interesting force to be reckoned with in the future. Kanoko stared at Kakashi. Kakashi stared back at her. No, Kanoko said firmly, closing her eyes and crossing her arms. Come on, Kanoko-chan. Kakashi whined like a little kid. No. Kanoko firmed again. She had successfully dealt with a whiny Hashirama and a lazy Shikamaru. Kakashi was nothing. Pretty please. Kakashi begged with his hands pressed together. No. Kanoko was getting irritated. Sai, I guess if that's your decision, Kakashi said. It is. Kanoko agreed, finally calming, now that Kakashi had stopped bugging her. Kakashi's eye glinted evilly. Kanoko stood quickly, you wouldn't dare. Naruto. Sakura. Kanoko's going to teach you a really amazing and awesome ninja skill, Kakashi yelled from his bed. Naruto and Sakura both came running over each other, and pushing the other out of the way. Once they got into the room, they both looked up at Kanoko with innocent, childlike eyes. Kanoko backed away with a disturbed look, before glaring at Kakashi. I hate you. That's so sweet, Kanoko-chan. I feel the same way about you, Kakashi said with a small crackle. I want to know. What is it? What is this amazing and awesome skill? Why won't you tell us? How come you're leading us into the woods? Why? Shut up, Naruto. Sakura yelled at Naruto, whacking him from behind. Sakura-chan. Naruto whined, looking back at Sakura. Kanoko just kept moving before stopping in front of some trees. We're here. Naruto and Sakura looked around before asking, what are we doing here? Kanoko threw 2 kunai out. Each one landed on a tree near the peak. You both are going to go up there and grab it, but there are conditions. Kanoko looked back at the 2 of them. You're going to grab it by slowly walking up your tree. As practice, you can take a running start, but for you to pass, you must show me you can do it slowly. Sakura looked confused and asked, how are we supposed to do that? Kanoko bent down and grabbed a leaf. She focused on it, and then turned her hand upside down. The leaf did not fall. Wow! How did you do that? Is it some kind of trick? Naruto asked, sticking his face close to Kanoko's hand, trying to look for wires or glue. No. Naruto, you know how in order to complete the Shadow Clone Jutsu, you must make hand signs, and then force some chakra out to form them? Yeah. I have to do that with all my jutsus, Naruto said, placing his chin on his fist in thought. Instead of flushing the chakra out, you're going to train yourself by limiting the amount of chakra you use. In doing this, you'll be able to attach yourself to things like this leaf or that tree, or a kunai. Naruto's face contorted, trying hard to understand what Kanoko was saying. Sighing internally, she started again. Think of it like this. You're at home, in your bathroom, and you want to brush your teeth. First, you need to get your toothbrush wet. You could turn the faucet on max, but it would just splash everywhere, making a mess, when you only need a little bit for your toothbrush. The solution is that you don't turn your faucet on all the way, but limit how much is coming out. A light bulb lit up in Naruto's head, and he slammed his fist into his hand, saying, Oh, I got it. So how do we go that? Kanoko sighed, this time out loud. First, I want you to focus on your chakra. Kanoko sat down, crisscrossed, motioning Sakura and Naruto to follow. But Kanoko, we know how to do this part already. Sakura whined. Kanoko gave them both a pointed look. Closing her eyes, she continued, focus on the chakra within you. Chakra starts in the stomach and flows out to your body. Focus on your chakra and move it to your feet. Do this a few times. Naruto and Sakura both sat, eyes closed, focusing on moving their chakra. After a good amount of time, Kanoko indicated from them to stand. Now that you have felt yourself move your chakra, I want you to walk over to the tree and stick your foot out onto the tree. Once you have done that, push out your chakra, in an attempt to stick to it. Don't try to run up the tree and don't get mad if you don't stick. We're not there yet. Kanoko warned, giving Naruto a pointed look. He laughed nervously before going over and doing as he was told, surprisingly. Kanoko observed as their first attempt ripped the bark off of the tree. What? Why did it do that? Naruto asked, confused. You applied too much chakra. You need to apply enough chakra to stick, but not so much that the tree cracks underneath. Kanoko explained. Kanoko walked over to Naruto. Naruto, as an Uzumaki, you have an immense amount of chakra in reserve. This is great for ninjutsu because it means you have a better chance of outlasting your opponents and using more powerful jutsu. Naruto looked up at Kanoko with stars in his eyes. His excitement was too much for Kanoko, however, it means you're going to have a much harder time controlling all that chakra. You remember how you could never complete the clone jutsu in the academy? It's because the jutsu requires a very small amount of chakra, and too much causes the jutsu to come out incorrectly. All Uzumakis faced the same problem growing up. Naruto looked stuck between, depressed that this was going to be another difficult thing to learn and happy that he's not the only one with this problem. Or was the only one. Kanoko never did research whether the Uzumaki clan still existed. Kanoko walked over to Sakura and said, You on the other hand, Sakura, are going to pick this up pretty quickly. Like me, your chakra reserves are fairly low. I'll show you ways to improve your reserves later, but for now let's focus on this. Just remember, enough to stick, but not so much that you damage the tree. After you figure out how to stick, try taking a few runs at the tree, but don't go up too high until you're confident you'll stick. With that, Kanoko walked over to a spot away from the 2 trees and sat down. I can't believe I got suckered into doing that useless Jounin's job. He better be using this time productively. Kanoko thought, crossing her arms. Elsewhere. Peeking out from behind a brand new copy of Ika Ika Paradise was a masked Jounin, also known as the legendary copy ninja of the Leaf Village, with an upturned eye and a small blush on his cheek. A few days had passed since Kanoko started Naruto's and Sakura's training. Sakura, as suspected, got it right away. Naruto, however, was spending the days and nights out in the forest, training. Kanoko praised him for his dedication. Well, not verbally, but it was praise nonetheless. They were all eating at the dinner table when Inari came in and yelled at them, telling them Team 7 was going to die, and that they should just give up. Tazuna apologized and told them Inari's story, his life up to this point. How he looked up to Tazuna's son, like he was his father, and how Tazuna's son was suddenly executed by Gato for being a hero. Naruto stared ahead for a while, simmering with anger before he stood up from his seat, only to fall to the ground. Maybe you should take the day off, Naruto. You've used too much chakra. Training further could kill you, Kakashi-sensei told Naruto, trying to sound reasonable. Naruto just struggled to get up from the ground while saying, I'm going to prove it. Prove what? Sakura asked. While getting to his feet, Naruto said, I'll prove that it's true. That in this world, there are real heroes. Naruto finished with a look of determination. With that declaration, Naruto ran out the door to the forest to train. Where's Naruto? Kakashi asked the table. Who knows? He could be dead by now from chakra exhaustion, Sakura said, annoyed at Naruto's carelessness. That sounds so cold. If I hadn't been raised with them, I'd think she'd really prefer him dead. However, I know that's just her weird way of showing that she cares. I take it back. Not even the women are sane in this time frame. Kanoko thought, poking at her food, wondering herself if Naruto was okay. They eventually found Naruto at his tree, up at the top, on a branch. Hey guys! Look, I can tree walk now! Naruto exclaimed, before he lost his footing. If he falls from that height, he's dead, Kanoko thought, breaking out into a run to catch him. Kakashi was still hobbling around on a crutch, and Sakura isn't strong enough yet to grab Naruto. Oh! Sakura screamed, closing her eyes. Wah! H! Ha ha! Got you! Naruto yelled, as he fell, only to stick to the bottom of the branch by his feet. Naruto! Sakura growled out. Kanoko had stopped at the bottom of the tree, when she saw Naruto had caught himself. She took a deep breath and called out, Naruto. That's amazing. Come down here for a second. I want to give you a secret ninja scroll as a reward. What? Oh boy. Naruto ran down and stopped in front of Kanoko. What is it? A fire jutsu? A dragon type of jutsu? What? What? Naruto had a large grin on his face, and was jumping up and down. Kanoko yanked Naruto by the collar, close to her face, and said darkly, You ever pull a stunt like that again, and I will date you. Naruto gulped when Kanoko let him go, and laughed nervously, haha. Yep. Got it. Won't do that again. Before running away behind Kakashi. If I'm still sane by the time they finish their training, it'll be a miracle, Kakashi thought with a sheepish smile, looking towards the sky. They were all back at Tazuna's house, getting ready for bed, when Sakura popped up with a question. Kanoko? Remember when we were on the boat, crossing the water to get here? I asked you about those markings on your arm. Sakura finished, holding her knees close to her body. Naruto jumped out from his covers and crawled over to Kanoko's futon. Yeah. You said you'd tell us. Kanoko sighed, before looking over to Kakashi-sensei. Even he looked interested. Kanoko pulled up her sleeve and activated the seal. This is a form of Fuinjutsu. Do you remember what we told you before about it, Naruto? Naruto nodded thoughtfully, watching light blue lines crawl up Kanoko's arm. I thought that was about scrolls though. Kanoko nodded. Fuinjutsu can be written on scrolls, as that is most common, but it also can be placed on objects or tattooed onto a person's body. I tattooed this seal onto my body, at this point here. Kanoko finished, deactivating the seal and showing the black dot in the center of her palm. She reactivated it, 6 lines extending from the dot in her palm out to a larger circle. These lines extended past the circle, into a curved shape, making the design look like a whirlpool. With my left palm, I would touch or grab a ninja, sucking their chakra from them. Like a vacuum cleaner. Naruto and Sakura both